discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Is the Prime Minister seeking even closer ties with the EU?
Sir Keir Starmer is set to meet European leaders in Brussels tomorrow.
Well, the move is the first time a British Prime Minister will attend such a gathering since we left the EU in 2020.
Has the Prime Minister forgotten his previous promises?
There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market.
The government eases checks on illegal migrants. Labour repeal rules introduced by the Tories blocking citizenship for those who arrive illegally.
A chess piece for China. The Duke of York was seen as a valuable communications channel. That's according to the latest court papers.
Leaders of Canada and Mexico hit back with retaliation trade tariffs on Donald Trump's levies.
I think Canadians are a little perplexed as to why our closest friends and neighbours are choosing to target us.
The Princess of Wales's plea to parents. New research by the Royal Foundation Centre calls for adults to look at their children, not their phones.
AI abuse crackdown. The UK has become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own tools which can generate child abuse images.
And as a cash-strapped council sends letters to its well-off residents asking them if they would voluntarily pay more council tax, we're asking if higher earners should actually pay more to their local community.
Good morning. It was a gallant defeat, but a defeat nonetheless for England, who suffered a loss against Ireland in Dublin in their Six Nations opener. In the Premier League, meanwhile, Nottingham Forest hit 7 against Brighton, and Marcus Rashford is on the verge of a loan move to Aston Villa.
Good morning. Well, there's plenty of sunshine in the forecast for the southeast of England today. Cloudier in the west. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, the King is launching a new initiative, particularly aimed at young people, but really anybody, to try and promote more learning of and the continuation of traditional crafts and skills, the sort of countryside things.
Yeah, you know. I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea because he's worried that they will in the end die out, and he's probably right there, don't you think? I just wonder...
What sort of things are we talking about?
Well, I'm thinking of... what I've always wanted to be able to do, but Nigel, I've got a very small house now without the sort of right garden, but you know those willow hedges you see? And there's a craft, I don't know what it's called, where they take the top of the willow and they weave it into the next bit and the next bit, and you see these wonderful hedgerows of these woven willows, I think they are. And it's such a skill. And that would be, it's a bit like dry stone walling. It would be such a shame if that particular craft or skill died out.
Well, it would.
What would you do?
Pottery.
Oh, really? Have you ever tried it?
No. I've always felt, you know, the potter's wheel and all that. I know it's a real skill, but and the people who can do it well make it look so easy. I'd love to have a go.
My mum did it for about a year, pottery, about 30-odd years ago, and I never knew she was any good at it, but she'd come back every week with this new model of something, and we've still got the boot. No, it was a boot. She made a boot. It's still in our back garden.
A boot?
Yeah, a boot. It was a big boot like that. It was really, really skilled.
Yeah.
Really good. And she used to come in and teach patchwork at school.
You see, there
every
is
Wednesday.
Another very good old-fashioned craft that would be a shame to lose.
I mean, we did sewing at school.
Yeah, well, you see, that is almost an old-fashioned craft.
I did sewing.
Yeah. And knitting and crocheting.
Yeah, we didn't do crochet. We did knitting.
Yeah. I mean,
all I could knit was a scarf.
Yeah, that's what most people knit. But Doctor Who made them very, very
well, he did.
Iconic. So that's allowed if all you can knit is a scarf. Are you into any sort of craft, or would you want
model making. I've made a few models of football stadiums in the past, I have. So quite a good level. I have to give you some... I've got some pictures on my phone. I'll show you in a bit if you want.
Because I'm into model railwaying.
Yeah.
But I've begun to realise that what I'm really into is making the little villages.
Yeah.
And the duck ponds.
I did a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
You can buy all the stuff from the individual shops.
Much better if you make it from.
The rubber foliage.
Yeah, you could.
I used to like the smell of it.
Yeah. I go around when I walk. When I walk in the door, you see little bits of thing that if you took it home and dried it, like grasses and things like that, they would look like proper trees and stuff. So. I love that.
It's the issue with it is not whether we like it or not particularly, whether we're any good at it. It's about they are skills which we are losing.
Yes, exactly.
And that's no good. We can't afford to lose all these skills because once they're gone,
lovely things.
They are gone.
Yeah. Well, it's like thatching, for instance.
Thatching.
Aren't we? We don't have many thatchers left.
No, my uncle's a thatcher actually.
Wow.
Really? By marriage, yeah. He's a thatcher.
No, hang on. By marriage, you mean he's called Thatcher?
No.
He's married to a Thatcher.
No. My uncle by marriage.
Yeah. Oh, I see, your uncle by marriage. He's not a Thatcher by marriage.
No, he's not called Thatcher. He is a Thatcher.
I did wonder. But that is a skill that's dying out.
Yeah.
They are very much in demand.
They are, especially down south where they live. It's there's loads of it, and it's expensive to get done now because there aren't many of them.
No, exactly.
It's good money.
And hard
work though.
Very hard work, but that's why they're worth a fortune, really. The one I'd like to have a go at, but you'd need a proper workshop in the garden and all sorts of tools and things, is stained glass window making.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. You know, when you see houses that have got those front doors with the stained glass window panel, I love that.
We should, because what's that website called?
You've got some quite modern ones in new churches, actually.
Stainclasswindows.com.
Stainclasswindows.com. The one you do all the little bits of shopping and... Etsy.
Etsy, yeah.
That's got me phone for it. You get loads of people on there doing little stained glass ornaments and things. And lovely, I'm always buying them.
Oh, do get in touch and tell us what sort of craft or skill maybe you already do or you would love to do, and you're worried that maybe it is dying out. But I think that initiative, which is the King's Foundation 35th anniversary, apparently, so it's obviously something he set up a while ago, is particularly interested in getting certain crafts back up and running and being taught again.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Right, leave it or not, it's 7 minutes past 6. Friday, as you will remember, marked 5 years since Brexit, but by this time tomorrow, could we be sliding back to Brussels as a rule taker?
Well, that's the warning from the former Brexit minister, David Jones, ahead of Sir Keir Starmer jetting off as part of his big relations reset.
Well, this is what he said in November when he was asked about the possibility of pursuing a renewed deal on post-Brexit relations.
Been very clear that I don't think the deal that we've got with the EU is good enough, and that's why we are resetting that and looking for a better deal, whether that's on security and defence, hugely important, but also on trade.
I think a lot of people are a bit worried that maybe we're cozying up to the wrong people because of post-Brexit. Also China, but more on that in a moment. Let's get the thoughts of political commentator Duncan Barks, who's with us in the studio. A very good morning. To you. Do you feel that Keir Starmer's doing his utmost to sort of reverse things?
Yes, I think I do. So, 17.4 million people voted Leave back in 2016. We won't rehearse the arguments. I think we all still bear the scars. The optics of this don't look good. And I think also we've got to consider that we have someone new in the White House here who we'd quite like a buoyant relationship with and a trade deal who's not a big fan of the EU. So when you have the Prime Minister disappearing off to Brussels in 24 hours' time to go and have dinner with 27 member states and their heads, it is not a good look.
Well, except he's saying... I'm not saying we have to take him at his word, no. But we are told, it's about, bespoke deals, a bespoke customs union. He said in the past, we're not going to join the single market, we're not going to join the EU customs union, we're not going to have free movement of people. So have we got anything to worry about?
Yes, we have, because this is a man whose government's U-turned on various things inside the last 6 months. So I think there's an argument to be made, which is you can't necessarily take at face value what the Prime Minister has said. Look, I think you look at the optics of this, it doesn't look great if you're someone who wants Brexit. And let's be honest, when we talk about Labour, they did everything possible to actually block Brexit when they were in opposition. So I completely understand the system and how some people, when they read the Times newspaper this morning, might be thinking, this is not a good look. The other thing we have to consider here is the political ramifications, because this will be weaponised by Nigel Farage's Reform Party, which is already, in some polls that have come out inside the last 3 or 4 days, are ahead of all of the other parties, including the Labour Party. So for Farage, I mean, this is golden, isn't it? Because you can easily make the argument, which is, you voted for Brexit, look what they're doing now, vote for us, because if we get into government, we'll ensure there's a proper Brexit. I also think, just touching on the Trump stuff as well, and we mentioned tariffs a few moments ago, we've got these tariffs that have been introduced by Trump in the last 24 hours on Canada and Mexico as well. A lot of economists are saying, look, he might do this on EU member states. Britain might be all right, but we don't know at the moment. He does have an issue with the EU. So if it seems like the Prime Minister is going further and further towards being friendly with the EU, that puts us on a collision course with Donald Trump.
Can I just ask you about whether it was our second headline this morning, the immigration issue?
Yeah.
Because, again, that's why I don't understand why Labour sometimes seems to just shoot itself in the foot. We know immigration is a big concern in this country, and they're rowing back on some of these issues.
It's extraordinary.
Things like, if you come to the UK legally, you can never become a UK citizen.
It is bizarre. So just a bit of context and background on this, and I've had to make some notes on this because it's a little bit complicated. So there's a new bit of legislation that Home Office ministers last week published called the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, and it's the small print here that the Telegraph have been wading through to reveal that they will basically repeal chunks of a previous law that was a Conservative Party law, the Illegal Migration Act, that came through Parliament in 2023. The two key points of this is that Act included a provision which meant that almost anyone who entered the country illegally was ineligible, for settled status and ultimately citizenship, so they couldn't become a citizen of this country. It also featured another clause that stated that asylum seekers could be treated as over 18 if they refused to take a scientific age assessment. Now, I think most people watching GB News this morning would go, well, this is common sense. You've got people illegally arriving to these shores. It's only right and proper that we test them to make sure we know who they are. And certainly, if they come here illegally, they shouldn't necessarily have an easy way of being granted citizenship.
And we also know, don't we, that there is evidence that some adults are being groomed or, shown how to come over as children and claim that they are.
So some really interesting stats in the Telegraph piece. In the first half of last year, more than 1,300 illegal migrants were caught pretending to be minors. Those arrivals who are classified as under 18s are given school places and housed by local councils. So what we're seeing here is this idea that we don't test them. What happens elsewhere, just to give it some background and context, in other European countries, including France and Germany, they use medical tests to help determine the ages of young asylum seekers. What we're looking at here is this idea which we go, oh, we might not do that anymore.
There's nothing to say.
And I think the thing to add to this is it goes back to this idea that and it was a very contentious issue for some, that when the Conservatives were in power, we had this deterrent of Rwanda, which is you come to this country, you're going to be processed in Rwanda. And there are examples around the world, most notably Australia, but elsewhere, that if you process in a third country, it does work as a deterrent because people go, oh, I don't want to go there. We don't have that deterrent anymore, and this piece in the Telegraph rather suggests that we're going further down this route of making it more attractive to come to this country.
It would appear so. Duncan, we've got to leave it there. Thank you. I'm slightly lost for words just with it all, because it's just... Well, we know, even in the papers yesterday, Tony Blair, love him or hate him, saying, you know, you're not just bringing ID cards because immigration's the big issue and it will help. And then they announced this, which seems to be saying they're going a bit softer on immigration.
And what about, is it a worry, what about the government's apparent growing connection with China? Because, you know, Rachel Reeves was over in China, coming back very thrilled at her growing relationship with that country. And now we learn there's a huge spread in the Daily Mail today talking about the fact that China wants to build the biggest embassy in Europe, in Britain, in London, by Tower Bridge. It's basically the site of the old Royal Mint. And it has been, they've been asking for planning permission to build it for quite a few years now. That's what it will look like if it is ever built. I mean, it's enormous, and it's right next to Tower Bridge.
But the police opposed
it. The police have opposed it. The Secret Service have opposed it. The local Tower Hamlets Council have consistently opposed the planning permission. But now Angela Rayner has these special powers to wrest certain decisions away from local councils. She has taken it over now, and it is thought that it will now go ahead. It's the biggest Chinese embassy in Europe, right bang in an area where everybody seems to think it's far too sensitive, or far too big.
Odd, isn't it? Well, meanwhile, on the other side of the pond, a trade war it's more than brewing. It's underway now between the US, Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, President Trump has signed an executive order placing 25% tariffs on goods imported from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tax on Chinese.
Well, Canada and Mexico have hit back, announcing their own retaliatory tariffs.
I am announcing Canada will be responding to the US trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Well, we're now joined by Chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Hello, Greg.
Good morning.
Gosh, I mean, since President Trump got in, I think you're going to be in the studio more and more talking about things. But has he started something that he can't control now, or do you still believe in what he's doing?
I believe in what he's doing based on his past experience in his first term, and also that he's telegraphed this from the beginning of his campaign. So there's really no surprises in what he's doing. Perhaps the speed and the volume of what he's done so far is a surprise. But, you know, the fact that he was threatening tariffs, it shouldn't be, you know, it was very well telegraphed in the past.
Yeah, well, indeed. And he's, you know, he's following through on what he said, which is in some ways refreshing.
Yeah, it's honest.
But is he doing this to protect America? Is this about America first, or is it a negotiating tactic for other issues like border crossings?
It's both, but it's more the latter. I mean, really what this is all about is bargaining to encourage Mexico and Canada to do what they should do on the border. And that was the number one issue and has remained the number one issue, you know, going back to the campaign. But this is what American voters want. And so, you know, he'll use the threats of tariffs if the Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government doesn't respond appropriately to the threats, he'll actually impose them. And so there's a chance that these tariffs never go into effect. I thought Justin Trudeau was almost comical in his response. Trudeau will lose. And this is a war that I would not fight if I were Justin Trudeau. The Canadian exports to the U.S. are 21% of their economy. For Mexico, it's higher. It's actually 30%. 21% of GDP for Canada. American exports, U.S. exports to Canada and Mexico are 1% of GDP. It's a rounding error. So shut down the border, stop sending fentanyl to kill our young people. You know,
that's a Canada issue.
Without a doubt. And so it comes across both borders, Mexico and Canada. Much of it is manufactured in China, thus the 10% tariffs on China. It's a pretty simple one. It's you know, it's shut.
But is it simple enough for Canada to address?
It should be. It should be. But unfortunately, Trudeau is you know, obviously he's a dying brand, right? He's leaving office, but this is a last-minute attempt to show some sort of manhood, which is an utter failure, because that's not something I would try if I were Trudeau. That ship has sailed. And so, you know, he had a chance here. He went down, he threw out his own, he basically buckled on his own self-respect and went to Mar-a-Lago, you know, a few days after the election to kiss the ring. And he had a chance to do something. He had a chance to do the right thing, but he is still stuck to the virtue signaling from Ottawa that, you know, that he just can't separate himself from. And so this is really sad for the Canadian people. And they're being misrepresented. If the election were tomorrow, he'd lose by 20 points. And,
Because you said this is in many ways a negotiating tool.
Yeah.
He's also said a couple of days ago, you know, there's something very big coming for the EU.
Yeah.
What's he trying to get out of the EU?
I think, you know, as we were talking earlier in the first segment, I think, again, negotiating tool for sure. Trump is not a fan of the EU. Biden was very much a fan of the EU and showed that in his disrespect for the United Kingdom in constantly favoring the EU as well as specifically Ireland. And so this is, you know, a chance for the EU to get ahead of this, and especially a chance for the UK to get ahead of it. I do think, you know, I'm not sure that tariffs are coming for the EU. I don't think they're coming for the UK, but you know,
who knows?
You never know. And, you know, there's a lot of unpredictability. Markets like certainty, and they're not going to get it from this president. What's more important to President Trump is Main Street, not Wall Street in this case. So he'll sacrifice the certainty that markets love for the ability to negotiate on what's best for not just America. It would be better for Canada and Mexico if they shut the border down, if they shut down fentanyl labs, if they actually did what's best for their citizens, which Trudeau is clearly not doing right now.
OK. Greg, I know we're going to see you later on, but for now,
of course, see you.
Gosh, they're interesting times, aren't they? Right, 6:20. Yeah. Time for the weather now with Catherine Chalk.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning, it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England, into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastwards. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. Thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up to a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, there are 2 chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway. We've got 2 prize bundles. Each one has a brand new iPhone, $500 to spend in your favourite store and £10,000 in tax-free cash. If you want to be one of our winners, here's how.
The Great British Giveaway is officially 1 year old, and we have a birthday treat for you. We're giving you not 1, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, do stay with us. Still to come, new laws are going to come into effect to target AI-generated child sex abuse images. We'll be hearing more about that from Charlie Peters next.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feathers McGraw, Wallace and Gromit's their villain, has become an unlikely hit at UK tattoo parlours. He's menacing.
He is, yeah.
He's,
and in fact, he doesn't speak, and he's got this glove on top of his head trying to convince us he's a chicken or something.
And that is a real tattoo that someone has decided to have there. What do you two think about tattoos? Are they express themselves? Or?
I love it. So I've basically got Dr. King.
There we go.
Oh, there he goes.
Nice. He's showing us.
If you can't fly, run.
Nice.
It's probably slightly more meaningful than having the villainous Engel.
Oh, come on, Trey, you got Feathers McGraw.
Maybe not. It's kind of got that kind of, you know, when you go abroad and you're Ibiza or Magaluf and you Tenerife and you get a quick tattoo. It's looking like that,
chest,
or like a pirate or something. It's kind of got that vibe, not for me. However, I do get the sentimentality around it. You know, some people have grown up on Wallace and Gromit and they love it and it has meaning. And he is a well-written character, so I get it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
I prefer my tattoos a bit more meaningful.
Bit more, yeah. I feel like as well, there's a surge in it. Lots of people have had it, but then is it then going to become unpopular because of it? And how many people regret the tattoos? Apparently, not 14% of people regret tattoos.
Wow.
See, I think that's where the meaningful side comes into it. I've got a couple of meaningful tattoos, and I know I will never get bored of them. Not one on my wrist, one on my ankle. They're not hidden, but I think because they mean something to me, I'll never get bored.
Yes, exactly. I think that's important. If you're gonna, you know, a tattoo's for life, isn't it?
That's the thing.
It's got to mean
I haven't got
something.
Have you not?
I'll be indecisive. I think
nothing
I'll get
you
something.
thought I want to keep on my body forever.
If I had about 6 or 7 pints and then stumbled into a tattoo parlour,
you'd come out with
that. Chaotic.
A disaster could happen. Then I walk out. And, oh no, I've got this for the rest of my life.
You might become addicted.
Well, let's hope not.
Some people do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's 6:27 now. The UK is going to become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own artificial intelligence tools designed to make images of child sexual abuse.
The move comes amid warnings that AI, artificial intelligence, has fuelled a wave of sex abuse against children.
Well, our reporter Charlie Peters joined a police raid and has the latest.
Police officers on their way to arrest 2 suspects for allegedly downloading and sharing child sexual abuse images.
Right! Open the door. Come out.
With 2 suspects in custody, specialist dogs capable of detecting hidden digital devices search the property. The arrests come as Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips announced new measures to tackle predators who are using artificial intelligence to target children.
We're announcing new measures to criminalise the creation of AI child abuse images, to criminalise the running. It seems shocking, I think, to the public to know that actually running a child abuse like manual website is not currently illegal, so we will be putting measures in place so that that is illegal.
Ministers are also introducing new powers to Border Force, allowing officers to unlock digital devices for inspection if they suspect that they pose a risk. The rise of abuse linked to AI has alarmed police chiefs, who now report that their average number of arrests for all child abuse has doubled since 2017. This alarming acceleration of the threat has been reported as the Internet Watch Foundation has warned that AI-generated abuse material has risen by 380% in a year.
My child's image could be being used. Anybody in the country's child's image could be used to make this horrendous content that fuels child abuse in our country. It is a massive battle. This is where it starts. This is not where it ends.
The government is committed to fighting AI-related child abuse, but the scale of the challenge is stark. Charlie Peters, GB News, Hertfordshire.
Wouldn't you think those very things would be made illegal years ago? I suppose AI is new.
It's new.
It's very sophisticated now.
Yeah, I don't know. There are a few questions around it, I think. How do you determine what is being used for what? I don't know what the materials necessary for that specifically are. I mean, I don't know. It's
horrible.
These people know more than we do on this, but you need to stamp down on it best you can, obviously. Right, don't go anywhere. I've got the sport heading your way in just a minute.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
At 6:34, loads of you getting in touch on your skill set. Brian from Melksham says, my wife Nikki loves baking, which in my eyes is a craft.
It is.
I think it is.
It's a
baking
skill.
and cooking from scratch is dying out. Good bakers, unbelievable.
Yeah, Bake Off has sort of revived it, but the King is arguing that we need to revive in a similar way, make it really lovely to do and good for the countryside and all the rest of it. We ought to revive dyeing skills and crafts like basket weaving, or that hedge thing that I was talking about, where you take the willow hedge and you weave it in amongst itself.
It's a bit like laying a hedge.
It's called hedge. It might be called hedge laying.
Well, hedge laying is an old fire, not necessarily with willow, but when you see, the hedge cutters now, and they come and they just trim the top off. It's really bad for hedges because then that's when they get hollow. So what you're meant to do is sort of half cut and then fold it down. It's a slow and laborious job, but that's how you get a good hedge.
Yeah. Patricia says, "Morning, you lovely people." Oh, that's nice. We don't often get that. I live in a thatched cottage, and a few years ago I had it all rethatched. The world and his wife constantly stopped to watch Stephen the Thatcher as he worked on the roof. Such happy times for us all who lived along our lane.
Yeah,
isn't that lovely?
Really nice. Right, Aidan's here, a man of many skills. Let's have a look at the sport, Aidan. England in the Six Nations.
Yes.
Was it a good effort?
It was a decent effort, but same problem, different day, unfortunately. I mean, if you consider that before Christmas they played the Autumn Internationals, they lost to South Africa, New Zealand and Australia in consecutive weeks, all by quite narrow scorelines. It was a bit similar yesterday. Now, Steve Borthwick named his side earlier in the week, 4 days before the match. I sometimes think that against the elite opposition, Stephen, that kind of hands the initiative. If you know exactly what you're up against. So he named Caden Murley as a debutant on the wing. He scored the opening try. But I just think if your opponents know exactly what they're dealing with, and I know you can adapt your tactics on the day. Personnel doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how things are going to play out on the day. But nonetheless, England did at least look decent up until 40 minutes, and they scored the first try, as I say. But they just seem incapable of going the whole way for 80 minutes. It was the same problems we'd seen previously. Ireland dominated the second half, did more than enough to win. Yeah, you can look at the scoreline and say 27-22, it wasn't that bad, but Ireland were comfortable in that second period, actually. And look, when you play against elite sides like that, I just don't think England have got it right now. And again, it's a problem with conditioning. Why are they fading late on in matches? I'm convinced it's because the Guinness Premiership does not offer any longer. We've reached a stage where it doesn't offer the level of competition that's required for international rugby, and England's coaching staff and their sports scientists need to look at that as a matter of urgency, because it can't just be coincidence that match after match after match they're fading late in games.
Yes, it does. You see it more and more.
Look, six defeats in 7 matches, that tells you the story. And I think Borthwick, I said Borthwick yesterday needs a decent tournament here. England have France next week, which means that they could give another gallant performance against France and still lose, and that means they've started another tournament with 2 consecutive defeats. Now, you can contrast that to Scotland yesterday, a hat-trick by Hugh Jones, a great Welsh name, actually, isn't it? I would argue.
He's very Welsh.
He helped dispatch Italy. That could have been tricky because Italy didn't take the wooden spoon last year. They gave a good account of themselves, and I think they looked to be heading that way. And as I say, it was 31-19. It wasn't quite as one-sided as the scoreline suggests, but Murrayfield was bouncing with that, and a good start for Scotland. But in terms of England, I think there's some soul-searching to be done here. Marcus Smith was sin-binned as well, which, again, Borthwick was asked afterwards about problems within discipline. If your main problems are conditioning and your fitness level and your discipline, they're 2 basics that you should expect to have right before you go out onto the field of play. Your players are fit enough and they're disciplined enough to stay on the field. If they can't even do that, I think England are shooting themselves in the foot before they've even kicked a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, shooting yourself in the foot is not good for football.
Certainly not. not for any sport, actually, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
What a day for Nottingham Forest yesterday.
Well, look, last week they went down to Bournemouth and they got absolutely hammered 5-0. And this is what makes me think that they've got something about them, because I always remember Norwich City in the first year of the Premier League. They took some real thrashings on their way to finishing 3rd in the league. But what they used to do, Anne, was they used to get thrashed, and next week they'd bounce back. And Nottingham Forest losing 5-0 at Bournemouth, that's normally the kind of defeat which gets you started on a negative run of matches. But yesterday, they fight back against Brighton. Brighton are a good side as well. A side who are going to finish in the top 10, and they've been in European action in the last couple of years, and they absolutely hammered them at 7-0. So much so that their captain, Brighton's captain, gave an interview to BBC Radio Sussex afterwards, and he thought the score was 8-0. He literally lost count of the score.
You're joking.
I know.
Amazing.
I know. Hat-trick for Chris Wood as well, the New Zealand international. Brilliant from them. Bournemouth, your favourites, unfortunately.
I know. They didn't
first defeat.
And they were at home.
At home, yeah, they were against Liverpool. It's no disgrace. Liverpool are going to win this Premier League. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And Bournemouth hadn't suffered a defeat since November 23rd. They had a goal disallowed as well. They played pretty well. So I don't think there's any cause for concern. And the defeat had to happen at some time. Everton, David Moyes, the magic man. 3 wins in a row now, taking them away from relegation trouble. And they were helped massively by the fact that Southampton, who are the worst team in the league by a country mile, went to Ipswich and won by 2-1. Now, David Moyes said, I'm not a magician. Well, you could have fooled me. 3 wins in a row. And Everton, I'm not sure how many games they won before that.
His value will go up, won't it?
Well, it is, without doubt. And then Wolves won 2-0 in the West Midlands derby against Villa. Fulham turned over Newcastle away from home, having been trailing in that game. Eddie Lost said, Eddie Lost, that's probably what he's going to be called if he loses too many more games. Eddie Howe said he was at a loss to explain that, because they were coasting in that game and they lost it later on. And we've got some decent games today as well. Man United, shorn of Marcus Rashford, we think. I'll come to that in a moment, against Crystal Palace. And Arsenal plays Man City today at 4:30, which we thought this time last year might be the match that decides the league title. Liverpool out in front at the moment. It might be a battle for 3rd or 4th, or 2nd even.
Yeah, well, yeah. OK. Aidan, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Absolutely. If you're in search of some winter sun, here is forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, it's rather unsettled across the central Mediterranean. Heavy showers, rain in parts of Spain as well, but there are some drier spells. So across the Canary Islands, we'll see some showers, but across Gibraltar and the south of Spain, some outbreaks of rain here. An area of low pressure will bring some heavy showers and thunderstorms across central parts of the Mediterranean, but there will be some drier spells in between. And then looking ahead, well, plenty of sunshine on offer, and it should be feeling pleasant in that sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As we kick off 2025, many of us might be thinking about a bit of a wardrobe refresh, especially if you're over 50 and you feel like the high street doesn't quite cater to you.
Indeed. That's where our next guest, Mel Tillett, comes in. She's in the studio with us now.
Mel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That you are this accidental influencer. I love that you said that's the first time.
Yeah, it is. That's the first time I've heard it.
You can have that
yes,
free on
thank
TV.
you so much. It's quite true.
Tell us about your following. Obviously, an influencer that many people might typically think of would be someone in their teens, someone in their 20s, someone who's particularly social media savvy, using TikTok. Talk to us about your brand of influencer.
Well, our influencer, my kind of influence is over the older age group, the over 50s. For my business, I do a lot of live videos. I'll do them early in the morning at 7:30, which sounds ridiculous, but I know my ladies are up and about at that time having a cup of coffee or whatever that might be. And just being honest about day-to-day life. So my dogs are running about, my grandchildren are even sometimes in them, one thing and another. So it's just been purely by accident that I've got this really nice, loyal following, and I get lovely messages off ladies. I'll do things like, I'll tell them when I'm going for a mammogram, and I'll say, come on, everybody go for your mammogram.
That's brilliant.
All sort of health-conscious things. I've been a lot heavier than I am now, and I've slimmed down and lost some weight. I've been talking about that journey as well. And then ladies will ask me questions on the videos, and we chat about all sorts of different things. And now I'm getting messages every day, and people are loving the clothing ranges that we do. And it's just, I started off as a business, that's purely what I did, but it's turned out into this other... I get recognised places I go now, which is really weird.
It must be a huge benefit to your business as well.
We employ around about 50 people.
Wow.
And I'm quite open to my audience and saying, you know, while ever you keep buying offers, while ever you're loving our products and our clothing, you're keeping 50 people in jobs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's have a look at some of the front pages for you. At 6:45, and the Sunday Express accuses the Prime Minister of edging us back into the EU.
Sunday Times reports that newly released court papers show how Prince Andrew was viewed as a valuable communications channel by the Chinese state.
The Sunday Telegraph says the government's easing border laws, initially designed to block illegal migrants from getting UK citizenship.
And The Sun alleges that one of the winners of the TV show The Traitors was confronted by his wife after growing close to a female colleague. That results in that headline.
The Observer says gambling companies may be forced to overhaul their advertising process following a legal case.
Well, joining us to try and make sense of some of that, at least, is public philosopher and researcher at Durham University, alongside journalist and entertainment reporter Stephanie Tecci. I didn't give your name, did I? Jack Symes. Jack is with us.
As a philosopher, it doesn't need his name reading.
No, I know. It's. I mean, we haven't had anyone quite that...
grand.
Exactly, that's the word.
Yes.
So we'll start with you, Steph. Yes, this is another Prince Andrew allegation.
Oh, gosh, New Year, and you thought the scandals would die down for the Duke of York, and it's not showing any signs of abating anytime soon, especially when it comes to his links with an alleged Chinese spy. So now MI5 apparently questioned Prince Andrew's most senior aide to find out what was the clandestine relationship between him and this spy Yang Tangbo, which dates back to 2013. In general, there's no problems with royals having communications with people. Well, that was his
job as well, anyway,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
there's no problems with
Isn't it?
that. But the problem with this guy was that he was flagged up by Suella Braverman at the time for being somewhat banned from coming into the country because of national security grounds. So now there's been hundreds of pages that have been released by the Special Immigrations Appeal to actually give more to the public about this relationship. And, you know, you just think with Andrew, how does he get it wrong with these people that he builds relationships with. And why does he feel he needs to build these kind of relationships? He's not the king. He's not someone that we really want him to be representing us with these kind of foreign connections. So it all seems pretty seedy, and I don't think it looks like 2025 is another year where Prince Andrew is going to be plagued by scandal, because now we've had that apparently with Epstein. Apparently his relationship was longer with him than he said in that disastrous Newsnight interview. I would want Prince Andrew to do another interview to clear everything up, but I think that would just be the final nail in the coffin.
Because he doesn't see what he did, how he got it wrong last time. He still thinks it was a good interview.
Now I understand why the king gets annoyed with his younger brother, you know, and I just, I think my sympathy's kind of gone for Prince Andrew, and I just think it's kind of best that he does stay out of public eye, but there are questions about this relationship which need to be answered and should be answered.
What do you make of it, Jack?
I don't think you should be doing another interview for sure. It's a bit of a car crash.
I just want it for entertainment purposes.
Well, yeah, honestly. Jack, what's the Sun on Sunday saying about Labour's plan to attack the reform?
Well, we've got a secret anti-reform database in the works at Labour, a think tank. And, you know, it's not a surprise, really, that it's not much of a secret. You'd be expecting the Labour government to be collecting information about their political rivals. But I think it speaks to just how much the Reform Party has grown. Nigel Farage's Reform Party ahead of in all the major polls against the Conservatives at the moment. And in the piece, Wes Anderson, The Sun highlights, says, we can defeat Farage by turning around the NHS. And I sort of think, you know what, they're not going to be beating Nigel Farage in terms of immigration rhetoric, culture war and general rhetoric. What they need to be doing is sorting out the things that we're relying on in the country, the trains that are over £100 and constantly cancelled, the NHS waiting list, 5 or 6 hours in A&E, school roofs, you know, coming down.
And a lot of that makes sense in a way. The issue you've got, I mean, that latest projection saying that we're going to get an extra 5 million people in the country by 2032. I mean, sorting out things like the NHS, how do you do that when you've got an ever-increasing population? That's the problem. They're interlinked, aren't they?
Well, I think so. I think the main concern, right, is that, well, come into the 2030s, we'll expect, like, the UK birth rate to decline significantly. We've got an ageing population, so the population is going to grow in the 2030s due to immigration. And there's no strong evidence to say that we can't have, you know, 80, 90 million people in this country. The difficulty, I think, is when people see, when they're paying so much for trains, when they can't afford, you know, to support their parents as they're growing older, they can't get enough money in their pensions to retire at a decent age. When they see someone coming over to the country, what it looks like on a free ticket, and they think they're getting they're getting something for nothing, you can imagine why you'd be really upset and why you could be inclined to vote for the Reform Party. But the philosopher John Rawls, the American philosopher in the 20th century, pointed out wonderfully that what people don't despise is charity. It's not that people don't want to be helping those in need, people fleeing war-torn countries. What they detest is the deep inequality between those at the top and them being left behind. So when they see their standard of living constantly going down, there's no surprise that they find themselves critical of this other group.
And that's where Reform and Nigel Farage are getting it right. They're connecting with what the public are going through at the moment. Like, I just think it's a bit disgraceful for Labour. Like, we've elected you as our government, and you're back-turning on a lot of your policies. You're not connecting with us at all. And I feel like even with Kemi as well, it's like, get out there, campaign with everybody. Let us see you, be present, so we can actually be like, this is a leader we can trust.
That's a really interesting point. It's an interesting point because no one is... I mean, there is certainly a disconnect with the Labour government.
They just get
Which is very odd for a Labour government. You'd expect them to really be in there with the working people. Instead, you know, they're popping off to China and, you know, Davos and all the rest of it all the time. They're absolutely obsessed with doing things almost academically, instead of actually saying the things that people want to hear.
I think for a lot of Labour voters, this is not the Labour government they were expecting. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised in the next election if many Labour voters are actually going to reform because they're connecting with us more.
Well, certainly. Labour are obviously very frightened of that, aren't they? Tell us about Boy George, Steph.
Cash-strapped Boy George.
Cash-strapped?
He is, yeah, he's very cash-strapped. He's racked up millions
of
pounds of debts, which obviously I don't like making a singing song.
How's he done that?
Well, there was that fallout he had with his former bandmate, John Moss, so he lost about probably 1.7 million in damages. He also owns Live Nation, his promoter, £12 million. So he's been ordered by a court to pay £500,000 every 6 months until December 27.
How can you do that?
It's easily with most of these showbiz acts. You think the money's flowing in, but, you know, you get a bad deal like this and then you're racked up in debt.
And apparently he's in danger of losing his rights to his name.
Yeah, so the trademark protection expired in December. So unless he can get the money to, you know, trademark Boy George again and Culture Club, he's in danger of losing it to a money firm, a media finance specialist firm. You kind of, I feel like our fans should come out and help support him, but, you know...
Doesn't it just show that some people who make a lot of money and are very, very successful at one stage in their lives, they can't manage the money?
Definitely, Anne, and I think it is as well. It's affording that lifestyle. I think at the height of your fame, it's easy when the money's coming in, but when you're no longer making those hits or touring as much, the money dries up.
Yeah,
and you
but it shouldn't.
deal.
I mean, he made so much if it were invested properly, but clearly
he's had a lot of scandals that have lost him over the years.
Oh, what a shame.
A lot of bad habits.
Yeah, but Boy George's real name is George O'Dowd, so we might be calling him that from
George O'Dear,
George O'Dear.
Yeah.
Oh.
We haven't
Such a nice person, Boy George. I don't like
met Boy George.
Yes, I know he's a lovely, lovely guy,
good music.
and so talented.
Yeah,
this is a rotten thing.
He needs to do a
have happened to him.
Netflix documentary or something.
Well, maybe he should. Last time I saw him, he was very, very piddled, though.
Was he?
Yeah.
Well,
and he was hanging out with Marilyn. Do you remember Marilyn?
Oh, yes.
I mean, he had about 2 hits about 40 years ago and then disappeared, and Marilyn was extremely...
Yeah, but George was hugely talented.
He was huge and very big in the States.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
Anyway, look, on that weird note, we're going to take a break from Jack and Steph, thank you, and we're going to have a look at the weather with Catherine.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England, into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastwards. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. Thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up to a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British Giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's the Prime Minister seeking even closer ties with the EU.
Sir Keir Starmer is set to meet European leaders in Brussels tomorrow.
Well, the move is the first time a British Prime Minister will attend such a gathering since we left the EU in 2020.
So has the Prime Minister forgotten his previous promises?
There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market.
The government eases checks on illegal migrants. Labour repeal rules introduced by the Tories, blocking citizenship for those who arrive illegally.
A chess piece for China. The Duke of York was seen as a valuable communications channel. That's according to court papers.
Trade wars underway. The leaders of Canada and Mexico hit back with retaliation tariffs on Donald Trump's new levies.
I think Canadians are a little perplexed as to why our closest friends and neighbours are choosing to target us.
The Princess of Wales' plea to parents. There's new research by the Royal Foundation Centre, which is calling for adults to look at their children, not their phones.
The UK is to become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own AI tools which can generate child abuse images.
And as a cash-strapped council sends letters to its better-off residents asking if they would voluntarily pay more council tax, we're asking if higher earners should pay more to their local community.
Marcus Rashford's Old Trafford nightmare looks to be finally drawing to a close, albeit temporarily. He's on the verge of a loan move to Aston Villa, with reports saying he'll have a medical at Villa Park today. In rugby, it was a familiar tale of woe for England as they suffered their Six Nations campaign, or they started their Six Nations campaign, I should say, with defeat in Ireland.
Good morning. Well, there's plenty of sunshine in the forecast for the southeast of England today. Cloudier in the west. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, I'm just engrossed in a story about Ofcom and Brexit. I'm talking about Brexit a lot lately with that 5-year anniversary and all the rest of it. And it's been taken to court over claims it failed to enforce impartiality rules on the BBC's so-called biased coverage of Brexit. So there's a judicial review brought by a group called Newswatch, which I just think is interesting. 5 years on...
5 years on, we're still battling away over it.
It's very interesting, these things. It doesn't mean they're going to win the case. The Ofcom may... the court may find that Ofcom did nothing wrong, but it's interesting.
But talking of Brexit, if you've got a collection, as some people do, of 50p coins...
Oh, yes.
Look through them to see if you've got one of the ones that apparently was coined. Yeah, misdated.
Minted.
The Royal Mint at the time decided to bring out a special 50p coin commemorating Brexit. But they printed a load of them, and then the date was changed. So they melted down the first printing and made them again with the proper date on. But there are several in circulation that give the first date.
Which is October. October 2019.
2019, that's right. Whereas the ones that were real were a couple of months later. I can't find the actual thing, but if you've got one of those, apparently it's worth a fortune. There were very few.
Tens of thousands of pounds. They minted 1 million, didn't they? They all had to be melted.
And then they melted them down, but some got into circulation. We think it's very few, but it's worth checking.
Yes, check your little coin stash if you've got one. We've been also talking about the Prince of... not the Prince of Wales,
no,
the King. The King, I do apologise, Your Majesty. Because he's called for more of us to relearn traditional skills, basket weaving...
Hedge laying,
pottery...
Thatching.
All that sort of thing.
Arts and crafts, basically.
Yeah.
But those old-fashioned ones that you want to keep going.
So we've been asking if you've been involved in any of that. Andre has been in touch, who says, here are some sculptures I make from ancient tree roots, and after a lot of work, it brings them back to life.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, I don't know what that is. Is it a horse?
Head, I think so.
And that...
Oh, I don't know what that is, but I like it.
It's quite abstract.
Yeah.
Or from the angles
But from
we're
old
seeing.
tree roots, that's very clever.
You see, I think that's absolutely... I love
I like
work
that.
like that.
Yeah. That is a real old-fashioned skill. And, with a modern twist, actually.
Yeah.
Very well done. But, I mean, the hedging I was talking about earlier, the weaving of the top part of the hedge into the... is apparently called hedge laying.
Yes.
I think we've got a picture of... That's how it's traditionally done. And then, of course, later on, all of those twigs and everything flower. That is a hedge that has been properly hedge laid.
Properly laid, yeah.
It's brilliant.
It's really hard work because you've got to cut all those branches sort of
in a
just
special
in
way,
half,
spliced,
so that you're not killing it. Yeah. And then they all regrow.
And then they go on growing, and that is properly cattle-proof as well, because it's very dense.
How you get your thick hedge.
Yeah, and then thatching, of course, one of our lovely viewers, it was Patricia, said that when they had their cottage rethatched, everybody came to see the thatcher at work, because that is quite a skill. I think we've got a picture of a thatcher at work, I think.
No, we haven't.
No, we can't see
what
it.
We have got, though, is Aidan McGee and his sculpture making.
Oh, yes.
Let's have a look at this one.
It's a model, mate. It's a model.
That's brilliant. It's where of and why and when?
That is Queen's Park Rangers Stadium, just down the road from here. This is my team. And I started it in 2011 when I was in between jobs on gardening leave. My mum had just died and I was stuck with things to do, living on my own up in Cheshire. And I thought to myself, can I reprise?
How big is it?
It's probably about the size of... a bit longer than a shoebox, I'd say. And then probably about, probably about 12 inches wide, I would say, something like that.
It's like a diorama.
Yeah,
What's that?
Yeah,
It's like a
diorama
diorama.
is that, exactly.
Oh,
that.
okay,
Yeah.
fine. So I've done two sides of it. I've still got to do the two behind the goal, but I made it out of acrylic paints, plastic foam
That's
board,
right, yeah.
balsa wood, anything I can get. I found the floodlights at a Thai restaurant I went to. Look, I looked at the chopsticks. I thought, great, they'll do for the floodlights.
Yeah, exactly. It's much nicer if you can make it from scratch, rather than go to a shop and just buy all the plastic versions.
Meanwhile, Duncan Barks, who's going to be talking politics with us in just a moment,
I
makes
suppose he
sausages.
I'm a sausage maker. A proud sausage maker. Yeah. I made some over the weekend.
So do you do your own form of the sausage meat first, do you?
Yeah, so I'm a mincer and a stuffer. I have a machine that does both.
Rumours are true.
So how long have we got? So you get your pork from the butcher.
Yeah.
And I use a mixture of shoulder and belly, because belly has the fat in, that gives...
and you need that for
sausage,
sausages. Yeah.
And shoulder's a little bit leaner, and you mince it all. Then you mix in your herbs and your spices. So over the weekend, I did pork, watercress and sage.
Wow. That
And watercress is quite peppery, so you've got a lovely taste. And sage has got that unique taste as well, which is a great companion to pork. You stick it, you mince all your meat up, you put in your herbs and spices, you mix it all together, you put it in the fridge for 24 hours, so it kind of gets to know each other well, kind of makes love to each other. Then...
Yeah, it's a bit much this early in the morning, but yes.
The next day you stuff your sausages.
Yeah, so you put it in there and it comes out of the...
Yeah, so you use hog casings, which is the lining of a pig, and you stuff your sausages.
Wow, but they're tasty.
And I started doing it because I went on the butchery course, because I'm a little bit, I come from the wilds of West Sussex, so we do stuff down there. And I couldn't do butchery at home because you need lots of space. So I went back and did the sausage course, and you can do it.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Well,
King Charles would approve.
The King would approve.
No chemicals, no preservatives. You know what you're eating.
I had cheddar in mine the other day.
Oh, well, don't get stuck in now, Aidan. We're running out of time.
Sorry.
Because it's 8 minutes past 7 already. So let's talk about the EU, should we? 5 years since we left. And yet, now there's these claims, because the Prime Minister's heading to Brussels for a big meeting tomorrow. First time that's happened since we left the EU. Is he trying to edge us back in a little bit? There are real concerns, Duncan, although some people say, even on the Brexit side, say, well, we do need to do things to get a better deal and lose some of the red tape.
We need some kind of relationship. I mean, the front page of the Sunday Express, Keir edging us back into the EU. You would expect them to say that. But you're right, they're our nearest neighbours, our trading neighbours, so we do need some kind of relationship. But I think there's justified cynicism here, because in the last 6 months of this new Labour government, they've done things that they never mentioned before. So the winter fuel payments got cancelled for most people. Inheritance tax was brought in on family farms and stuff. So I can understand why people are going, well, actually, can we trust Sir Keir Starmer when he says, look, I'm just going to go over to Brussels, have dinner with these head of nation states and just cosy up a little bit, but you've got nothing to worry about. And you ran the clip earlier. He's talked about their return to the customs union or the single market. Presumably we should take him at his word for that, but equally they have done stuff in their first few months of government that they never mentioned previously.
Isn't it fair to say, and I know this all gets a bit confusing trying to think back all those years, but the Brexit deal that was done has to be renegotiated about now anyway, doesn't it?
It does. It does. So, you can make the argument quite fairly that he's doing what you would expect him to do, and he wants to try and get some kind of better deal. And what's interesting about this report in the Times newspaper is there are... Kemi Badenoch said there's her red line is no reduction in fishing rights. You've got the Chancellor saying, well, look, we should be able to do certain things in terms of reducing the amount of regulation for British companies that want to trade with European nations. So maybe there's a balance to be met there. But one of the things I think is very clear from this, it gives a lot of meat and drink to Nigel Farage's Reform Party, because then you can have Nigel and his band of merry men just going, well, look, you can't trust Labour with this, they're going to reverse Brexit. So it's meat and drink for him.
Can we just have a look at immigration? Yeah. Because one thing which Labour is doing, which is this new immigration bill, which seems to be reversing a lot of what the Tories put in place, a lot of what would be considered deterrent.
Yeah, this is a really odd story. It's in the Telegraph, and the government, when they were asked about this, they say that Labour will continue to use age assessment and won't hesitate to go further in legislation if needed. So a Conservative Party law that was brought in was this idea that you should be able to test people who come to this country illegally, predominantly on dinghies across the Channel, to find out how old they are. Some stats here: in the first half of last year, more than 1,300 illegal migrants were caught pretending to be minors after their cases were flagged by officials. And some background here: those who are classed as under 18s who arrive in this country illegally are given school places and housed by local councils. They don't end up in a migrant hotel. What is interesting about this, currently small boat arrivals undergo an initial assessment by 2 Home Office staff who judge their physical appearance and demeanour. So there's no science behind this. It's like, oh, I think, yes, you certainly look this age or whatever. This bit of legislation potentially waters down the necessity of testing people who come to this country illegally by using MRI scans of knee bones and collarbones and their teeth to find out what their actual age is.
We can afford to give MRI scans to everybody who comes over on a dinghy?
Well, that's... yes.
You can't get an MRI scan if you're seriously ill in this country, not without a waiting list.
This is true, but the counterpoint would be, well, look, we need to do this in order to find out the age of people who are coming here. And there is documented evidence in the past. We've had people who say, I'm a child, but turn out to be in their early 20s, and, you know, they've gone into schools.
Yeah, but it also turns out now, doesn't it, that this idea that if you come here illegally, you cannot stay, you cannot get citizenship, is being thrown out.
Correct. So potentially we have this situation now where you could get UK citizenship if you come to this country illegally, whereas before, under Conservative legislation, that wasn't going to be something that happens. And again, this just comes back to this idea. If you look at the top 3 issues in this country regarding the stuff that matters to people, immigration is either always top or in the top 3. And this is, to be clear, this is illegal immigration. It's not people who are going through the system, people who are coming to this country illegally. And you'll have Conservative politicians in this article, you have Reform politicians just going, this is absurd. We shouldn't be given citizenship to people who come here illegally. They should be booted out of the country as soon as possible.
Yeah. OK, we've got to leave. Duncan, good to see you. Thank you very much
both.
Indeed, and good luck with the sausages.
I'll bring some in next time.
Yes, please, cooked.
Do you want them cooked?
Oh, yeah. In a sandwich.
In a sandwich.
In a roll, I think so.
There you go.
Very nice to see you, anyway. 13 minutes past 7, very nearly 14 minutes past 7. Now, the UK is set to become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own artificial intelligence, AI, tools that are designed to make images of child sexual abuse.
Now, the move comes amid warnings that AI has fuelled a wave of sex abuse against children, apparently.
Well, RGB News reporter Charlie Peters has joined a police raid and reports on this.
Police officers on their way to arrest 2 suspects for allegedly downloading and sharing child sexual images.
Right! Open the door. Come out.
With 2 suspects in custody, specialist dogs capable of detecting hidden digital devices search the property. The arrests come as Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips announced new measures to tackle predators who are using artificial intelligence to target children.
We're announcing new measures to criminalise the creation of AI child abuse images, to criminalise the running. It seems shocking, I think, to the public to know that actually running a child abuse like manual website is not currently illegal, so we will be putting measures in place so that that is illegal.
Ministers are also introducing new powers to Border Force, allowing officers to unlock digital devices for inspection if they suspect that they pose a risk. The rise of abuse linked to AI has alarmed police chiefs, who now report that their average number of arrests for all child abuse has doubled since 2017. This alarming acceleration of the threat has been reported as the Internet Watch Foundation has warned that AI-generated abuse material has risen by 380% in a year.
My child's image could be being used. Anybody in the country's child's image could be used to make this horrendous horrendous content that fuels child abuse in our country, it is a massive battle. This is where it starts. This is not where it ends.
The government is committed to fighting AI-related child abuse, but the scale of the challenge is stark. Charlie Peters, GB News, Hertfordshire.
Well, let's have a look at some other stories heading into the newsroom. And Barclays Bank customers are facing a third day of disrupted services following a huge IT problem. Online and mobile banking have been hit since it all started on Friday. The bank has said people could see an outdated balance with payments made or received not showing. They're working on the issue.
The Princess of Wales has launched a new initiative aimed at developing the nation's social and emotional skills. The scheme looks to alleviate the human cost from a world sometimes filled with mistrust and understanding. She said the state of modern life is leaving many people feeling isolated and vulnerable during troubled periods, resulting in poor mental health, addiction and abuse.
The actress Lily Collins and her husband have had a bit of a backlash after announcing the birth of their first child via surrogacy. The actress was inundated with congratulations from fans, but also faced criticism for joining the ranks of Hollywood stars having a baby via a surrogate. Critics have argued it's rich people renting women's bodies, and they've likened it to the Handmaid's Tale show. I don't know what I make of it all, you know.
Well, that's a bit rich, criticising somebody in that way. We don't know why. You never know why people might find it very difficult to have their own child.
They might. Well, yes, but you do get a lot of... I've noticed from when you Google people, you get a lot of these celebrities who have via... You know, you see they've got various children via surrogate. Is that because they literally don't want to do it, some of them?
I don't know, but it's a very big decision to make. I'll bet you there are other factors than just sort of being selfish. It's a bit too easy to just brand somebody selfish because they were too posh to push. I don't know. Who knows? Very weird. I've just come across a picture. I've been looking through pictures, trying to find some of my flower arranging pictures because we were talking about old... But, you know, flower arranging, serious flower arranging is incredibly talented. And I did have a pitch that I was putting to various TV things about a flower arranging show.
Yeah.
And there were some wonderful pictures. I was looking for a picture, and I've come across a picture of you presenting GB News here in a waistcoat.
Yes, I
You
remember
haven't done that for ages.
No, I haven't done it for a long while.
Why not? It looks very nice, doesn't it?
I look a bit like a snooker player.
Well, or a bank manager. Not that you see bank managers anymore, do you?
No.
Anyway, there's it. It's a nice look. Maybe for the summer.
Yes.
When it's too hot to wear a
Last time I went to the bank, you know, to do a big thing, and I had to go somewhere, and it was literally a wooden table with a cloth on it, and some fella sat there in a theatre entrance hall with someone on a laptop.
What? Well, I suppose that's what it's like now.
Well,
but time was, you used to be able to pop along to the bank and see the bank manager and plead with him.
It's all gone.
On a human level. Now it's all done by a computer algorithm, isn't it? Whether or not you're approved for a loan or whatever. Hey, they were the days.
The world's gone mad. Right, let's see if the weather's gone mad today. Here's Catherine.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Puffs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastwards. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up to a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, how about some money now? We're giving you 2 chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway because we've got 2 prize bundles. Each one contains a brand new iPhone, £500 to spend in your favourite store and £10,000 in tax-free cash. If you want to have a go at it, here's how.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right. You could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, President Trump has sparked a trade war with his tariffs on Canada, Mexico and China. Is it a good idea? Good for the economy in the States or not? We'll debate it next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. Yeah. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose as a practitioner or surgeon very carefully and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. is a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life.
Yeah.
So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, a trade war is, well, we were going to say is brewing, but it's probably full on now between the US, Canada and Mexico.
President Trump signed that executive order, so 25% tariffs on goods, or most goods, from Canada and Mexico, 10% on China.
Well, overnight, Canada and Mexico have hit back. Sorry. They're announcing now their own retaliatory tariffs.
I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Well, is it good for the world, for the US? How's it all going to work out? Let's talk to Chairman of Republican Overseas UK, Greg Swenson, and The Economist, Vicky Price. Good to see you both this morning. Is this a sensible move, Vicky?
Well, it's a political move. It makes very little sense economically because, of course, a lot of costs are going to be put on top of whatever else the various manufacturers are suffering from right now, from all these issues that we've had over the last few years in terms of cost increases. That's going to mean that a lot of businesses in the US have to bear this extra cost, possibly pass them on to consumers, because obviously if your imports become more expensive, then something has to give. Your profits will suffer, or the consumer may be able to pay for it. But overall, it's not a good idea, particularly if you look at Canada and Mexico and what it is that the US imports from them. The interesting thing about what President Trump has done on the Canadian imports is that he has imposed a smaller increase of 10% only on energy and other oil products coming from Canada, because it is very dependent on that. But it is also importing huge amount from both countries of, for example, car parts, which go straight into the manufacturing process of the car industry in the US. And those are going to go up in price quite considerably. So for oil and energy products, he's kept it down to 10%, everything else 25%. And that is going to be a big, big blow to quite a lot of businesses in the US.
I suppose, Greg, it depends on what Donald Trump wanted to achieve. What was his first and foremost sense of that?
Yeah, there's no doubt about his motives here, and he was very clear about that in his statement yesterday. This is all about the open border, but with both Mexico, especially Mexico, but also with Canada. There's fentanyl and illegal migrants coming over the border. If Justin Trudeau had agreed to stop that, or at least cooperate in stopping that, and shutting down the fentanyl labs, you know, then this all could have been avoided. So that's clearly the number one issue for American voters, but also the number one issue for President Trump, and he was very clear about that yesterday.
Vicky, with all of this, what was interesting was President Trump saying, you know, there is going to be some short-term instability with all of this, but we'll come through the other side. I mean, he's basically saying America needs to become more independent, more economically independent, more independent with its manufacturing. So perhaps in that sense, it is going to be a good boost for them and their economy in the longer term.
Well, possibly. I mean, of course, we must remember that President Biden was also ex-President Biden was also pretty protectionist. He had introduced this Inflation Reduction Act, which basically meant that you were favoured if you produced in the US rather than importing anything from elsewhere. So it had encouraged a lot of investment taking place there. So yes, you're quite right. I mean, the whole point is let's be less dependent on anyone else. But I think it is true that a lot of what he's doing is for a political reason. At the same time, though, he wants to also cut taxes more generally. Now, that has to be funded somehow. And tariffs on imports are one way of doing it. In fact, traditionally, the US has always had very high tariffs on imports. It's only really in the last few decades that we have seen import tariffs not being particularly large, because, of course, we have had a reasonably well-functioning World Trade Organization. You can't just put tariffs on without giving some reason. Well, he's given all sorts of reasons, but I think there is going to be a dispute. The World Trade Organization is going to have to look at this. And of course, as countries retaliate, as you've been covering, then what we're going to find is that world trade suffers quite considerably. And at the end, the US suffers as well.
What do you think about that, Greg?
Yeah, I think, look, this is could end up being, there could be some unintended consequences here, but I think what's important, again, going back to the motive of President Trump with the tariffs and on fentanyl, especially 80,000 deaths a year plus in fentanyl poisoning in America, mostly young people. So I think, you know, if there are some risks that there's inflation or there's higher prices, of course, but remember, the exports from Canada to the U.S. are 21% of the GDP of Canada. Exports from Mexico amount to about 30% of GDP in Mexico. The exports from America to those countries, less than 1% of GDP. So if there's a trade war, America wins.
Yeah, well, he's got size on his side that way, hasn't he? Greg, Vicky, good to talk to you both this morning. Thanks very much indeed. If you've got a thought on that, gbnews.com/your say. Is it a gamble? I suppose it is a gamble. These things are always a gamble, but is it a gamble that will pay off? Let us know what you think.
Should be maybe showing up Donald Trump as a businessman, maybe. From that point of view, he knows what he's doing. We will see. Aidan McGee will be here in just a couple of moments with all the latest sports news.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Aidan McGee is here, and I guess time to talk Marcus Rashford. What on earth is going on?
Well, you asked me yesterday, Anne, when this is going to end. Now, I think we'll see an announcement tomorrow, because the crucial part of any transfer deal is when we hear about the medical. And today we understand that Marcus Rashford, the Manchester United and England striker, although he didn't compete for England in the last Euros because he was left out on account of his poor form, but it looks as if, having had a couple of bits of interest from Tottenham, he had his heart set on Barcelona, but they couldn't accommodate him because they had to shift out 2 players to agree to their cost limits in La Liga. And so it looks like he's opted for Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, it seems, according to reports, are going to pay the majority of his £325,000 a week wages. That's because, and it's all about trading here, trading out players and trading in, it's all about balancing the books. They sold a player for £71 million on Thursday, John Duran. So they've got some money in their pocket, they're cash rich. That will have been a front-loaded deal, I would have thought. They'll get most of that money up front. They'll also have the wage space freed up by losing that player. Yeah. So they probably tempted him by saying, well, you know, let's make this deal attractive for United. If the majority, if they say 250 or 270, they'll get it over the line. And he fits in quite nicely to what Villa are trying to do. And the coach there, Unai Emery, a highly skilled, very competent guy, he will obviously look at Rashford the same way as most of us do. Maybe he just needs a move. Maybe he needs to change of environment, change of scenery. A change as good as a rest, as is often said.
Yeah, I mean, because he does... from someone who was always talked about for his football, but also for a lot of the campaigning he did.
Yes.
He's sort of a British hero.
He was.
And then he's just sort of slidden off the map.
I know. I mean, look at United.
He's lost his mojo.
Oh, he has. He has. I mean, it was only 2 years ago he was pulling up trees, and he played well for England in the World Cup. He's only 27, so he can't become a bad player overnight, can he? No. Yes, there's a little bit of baggage that comes with him because of his venture into politics, but some advertisers at certain football clubs, and it's a hugely aggressive corporate environment now in the Premier League with global sponsors, literally from any corner of the world. They might like his involvement in the campaigns that he gets involved in. So who knows? It might be a good move for everybody. But as I say, medical today. Talks happened over the weekend. I think he took a look at all 3 options. Barcelona not really doable. Tottenham, for whatever reason, didn't fancy it because they're not in the Champions League. And that's the key thing here. He's going from not being involved in the Europa League squads for Man United to go to the level above Champions League, which Aston Villa, for the first time in 40 years, can offer.
Well,
so let's wish him well.
Let's hope he pulls his socks up.
Yeah, well, we should get confirmation of that tomorrow. The deadline is 11 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Well, they could do with a bit of help, Aston Villa, because they lost 2-0 to Wolves yesterday.
Yeah, they're West Midlands rivals. Yeah, Wolves just down the road. And it was a bit of a shock result, that, really, because, you know, Villa, they suffered. When they play in the Champions League late in the week on a Thursday, they tend to suffer at weekends. They can't handle, because of the size of the squad perhaps, and because they're not used to European competition, they struggle going back to the Premier League, and their opponents see them as ripe for the taking, because they think, right, you've been involved in a 4-2 classic against Celtic, and 3 days later, fatigue. This is when managers and coaches and sports scientists talk about the management of the schedule and the amount of hours they play, and we say, well, you know, they should be able to take it because they've played this many games. This is what they're talking about, because they're having to rely on some of those players who played on Thursday, again, also Wednesday, again on Saturday, on big games, and no wonder there's a little bit of a tail-off in terms of fatigue, because they got done yesterday at Wolves, no question about that. Magic man, David Moyes.
Yes.
3 wins in a row now for Everton. Where did they come from? 4-0 against Leicester. Leicester were woeful, by the way.
How many goals did he get?
No, he's a manager.
Oh, oh no. Well, who am I thinking of then? Who got the goals?
Who got the goals for Everton? Not sure. I'll check for you though.
No, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused.
One of the players, probably.
Well, no. Look,
it would help. Yeah.
He said he's not a miracle worker.
Well,
he could have fooled me.
Yeah.
He could have fooled me, because he's gone in there 9 points from 9 from 3 games. That's absolutely outstanding from them, and they're pulling away from that. They're moving to this new stadium at Bramley Moor Dock next season. They need to go into that as a Premier League club, not a Championship club. And hopefully they will do that from their point of view, because, you know, you can't. They haven't been out of the top flight for decades and decades.
Just very briefly.
Yeah.
6 Nations.
Yes.
Bad news for England. Good news for Ireland. Good news for Scotland.
Yeah, good news for Scotland. A win against Italy, 31-19. A Hugh Jones hat-trick. Now, I'd have thought he'd played for Wales, wouldn't you?
Very Welsh.
He does indeed. That's a tricky one, actually, because Italy were pretty good in the last 6 Nations. They've shown signs of improving, having been the wooden spoon winners for number of years, but prompting calls actually for them to be kicked out of the competition altogether because they just weren't up to the mark. But they're making a few waves now, so Scotland will be pleased with that. England, meanwhile, same old story. They can't compete over 90 minutes. There's clearly a problem with conditioning. I don't know if it could be a problem with psychology. I'm not sure the competition in the domestic game is the requisite level for international rugby, and that showed yesterday because Ireland are a leak side. And they weren't always, but they are now, and they dispatched England quite easily in that second half.
OK. Aidan, thank you. See you later.
But first now, if you're in search of some winter sun, you'll want to know what the weather's like where you want to go. Here you go.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, it's rather unsettled across the central Mediterranean. Heavy showers, rain in parts of Spain as well. But there are some drier spells. So across the Canary Islands, we'll see some showers. But across Gibraltar and the south of Spain, some outbreaks of rain here. An area of low pressure will bring some heavy showers and thunderstorms across central parts of the Mediterranean. But there will be some drier spells in between. And then looking ahead, well, plenty of sunshine on offer. And it should be feeling pleasant in that sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Lisa, you got in touch with me and you flagged this survey because you were concerned as a parent that your child had been given this to fill out.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter came home from school. She was very confused. She was asking why somebody would want to hurt themselves if they were feeling sad or worried about something. So that led to a conversation that we had, and I actually phoned the school and asked them to send me the survey, which with a lot of pushing, they eventually did send me the survey. And when I read through it, I was just completely shocked at the content. The survey says when I'm feeling worried that maybe I should try cutting or harming myself because it's in the survey, so that must be an option. I've tried everything else, so why not try this?
It is astonishing that some of these are young children who are perhaps being introduced to these, these abuses for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of 17 different types of drugs, some of which I've actually never heard of myself. I mean, the wording on here is, have you ever got high from taking drugs? I mean...
And we know that some of these behaviours, self-harm, gender dysphoria, taking drugs, are psychologically contagious. Children do them because they see other children do them, or they find out about them from the internet or from surveys like this. So the idea that this is just information gathering and won't go any further than that is ridiculous. There was a similar survey in Scotland, I think, about 3 years ago, where children the same age, 11, 12, 13, were asked about their sex lives. How many times have you had sex in the last year? How did you have sex? Did you use contraception? Totally normalising underage sex. So the idea that children are just mini adults and we can confront them with all the same kind of ideas and dilemmas that adults have to face is just ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
7:45, time for the papers this morning with philosopher and researcher at Durham University, Jack Symes, and journalist and entertainment reporter, Ms. Stephanie Tecci. Good morning to you.
Good morning. And Stephanie, tell us about what Princess Catherine has been saying, the Princess of Wales.
You know, one of the big questions, Anne,
of anyone in the public figure, most women, is what are you wearing? You know, because people are fascinated by their outfits, what designer is made, who made the outfit. But now Catherine has come out, well, Kensington Palace has come out and said that they will no longer be disclosing what outfits Kate is wearing, which I think is a shame, because I think the public, especially fashionistas, we love knowing what the royals are wearing. You know, it kind of makes us more interested in where they are and what they're wearing. So I think by her doing this, it's hard to do it in the digital age. I think fashionistas
But why? Why are they making that point? That up until now, they've always let the press know what she's wearing and who, you know, who the designers are, etc. Why have they decided now to stop?
Because they're saying that they want us to be more focused on Kate's work and what she's doing and paying less attention on what she's wearing. But I think you can do both. I think it's just a minute detail to say Kate was wearing a dress by Dior, but at this event, why?
It's not a minute detail, because that's all anyone talks about. It's all the... It's just what she's on the front of the paper.
But I think people are going to continue to talk about that, if not even more so now, because she's not going to be disclosing it. People are going to go on a hunt now to find out what she's wearing. And actually, when she is wearing these lovely designs, it actually helps a lot of fashion designers if she's wearing like a sustainable dress. It helps designers and it helps the fashion industry as well.
Jack?
What's my opinion on the dresses?
Yeah.
No, it's whether or not, whether she's got a point that if they don't give out any details of her wardrobe, people and the press will focus more on what she's saying and what causes she's supporting.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, every part of the royals' lives is scrutinised in incredible detail, and whether or not it's made public information, they'll find out. Just look at the life of Prince Harry over the last 5 or 6 years. You can want to keep your privacy as much as you can feasibly can in the royal family, and you know that's not achievable.
Yeah, I agree with you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I think what's wrong with it? We the press still talk about what she says.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but
and what she does.
Less so. There's more emphasis on. Do you know what I think? It's an equality argument.
No.
Because you get all these people say it's all got to be equal, we've got to be treated the same, which is fine. I agree with that, but you don't go about saying what tie is William wearing.
Because it's of no interest.
So what? But that's sexist. So you bothered about Catherine because of how she looks.
No, but there's more with
women
in general, and I think she's the future queen of this country.
Yeah. And she is the pizzazz behind the whole.
But the pizzazz should be about what she does, not what she wears.
No, it's both.
It's a part of it. It's a part of
Jack, back me up.
I'm not on the. I can't back you up in terms of it being a sexist issue, right?
But actually, you know what it is like. People who might not necessarily care about what she's doing, actually, they might see her dressed nicely and be like, "Oh, where is she?" And then it sparks intrigue about what she's wearing.
It puts her on the front page. It puts her fashion sense, because she is so. She looks so wonderful, and she would look wonderful in a bin bag, but she looks wonderful in what she chooses to wear. It creates interest. It puts her on the front page of the newspapers. Yeah. It gets people excited about both being British and our royal family, as well as the causes.
Because of what she's wearing.
Yes, of course.
She's stunning. But the only thing with Catherine, in her defence, you know, she's just battled cancer, and I think maybe coming back into the public eye, she might be feeling a bit insecure and not wanting this all attention on her body and what she is wearing. So in that defence, I can understand maybe how she might be feeling slightly insecure, and maybe she might be changing her style when she's coming back now at more public events. But, you know, she's a fashion icon. Stuff that Princess Diana wore years ago, people are still talking about it now.
But that's because everyone was obsessed with what she looked like. You know, people should be judged more not on what they look like, but on what they're doing.
It's not judging, it's just...
It is.
It's excited about her.
It's admiring.
It's not admiring.
It's admiring.
It's not admiring.
She's not on the front of the page, on the papers, because of what she's doing. She's there because they think it's a good picture, and doesn't she look glamorous?
You are right about that. A lot of... We do that in the newspapers quite a bit. It's all about what people are wearing.
It's all your fault, Stephanie,
Stop
it. Leave the woman alone.
No. You can't say leave the woman alone. She's the Princess of Wales.
Future queen of this country.
Yeah.
So if she turns up in tracksuit bottoms at a big...
She's not going to do that.
If
she would look fabulous in that.
She really would.
Diana used to look very good in a pair of jeans and a jacket.
Can we talk, Jack, about the... about the Mail on Sunday, and Gen Zers apparently getting a bit hardline.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. The hardline news from the survey, 2/3 of under 30s believe that sexual offenders ought to be castrated. In the same report, 45% support the death penalty. And the argument is that, you know, we're being harsher on criminals, we're being harsher on, you know, especially child sexual exploitation and the like. I think this speaks to, like, right, well, first of all, you look at the contrast between, on the front of the Sunday People today, we've got Jeremy Bamber, lawyers claim that Lost Pictures cast doubt on his guilt. So we've got, on the one hand, almost 50% of people supporting the death penalty, but on the front page of another paper we have, you know, someone who might have been given the death penalty. New evidence is casting light on that.
Well, and with Lucy Letby, the same thing. Yeah.
Well, in terms of you know, the castration of sexual offenders, right? I think it speaks to the frustration of people and the fact that the police aren't able to take action against sexual offenders. We've just seen all the grooming gang scandal and exploitation of minors in our country, and the lack of police action on that. The abysmal statistics in the UK and the US on prosecuting sexual offenders. Less than 1% of sexual violence cases ended up in a prosecution. There's no wonder that people want harsher punishments for this kind of stuff. You know, but it speaks to the lack of our ability as a prison system to reform people as they go into the system. You don't need to castrate somebody if you can support the right... There's a very small amount of people that you could argue are never going to be able to overcome that disposition. But for the overwhelming majority of sexual offenders, you know, it's a combination of light drugs and therapy, which our prison system is... It's doing the opposite at the moment. There is...
But that's the interesting thing, is the people who are sort of arguing for tougher measures would also be the people who would not argue in terms of helping people when they are released from prison to get back into society and not reoffend.
Yeah.
It's almost sort of lock them up and throw away the key.
Not quite. As if violating someone's right, you know, then opens the door to any amount of pain and suffering you inflict on that person. It's a cliche, two wrongs don't make a right. It depends what we want from our prison system, but at the moment, the lack of support for prisoners to be able to reform, they're exposed to so much violence, sexual, physical, mental, when they're in prisons, the state of our prison officers as well. Like, we need a serious conversation in this country about what we want prison to do.
Yeah, we do.
The answer isn't just castrating people in the death penalty.
No.
That is a lazy... we should expect more from the country than kill people and castrate them. Like, what year are we living in?
The only trouble is that the real help that they need is counselling and 24-hour care and all the rest of it. Takes years and costs a fortune.
Yeah.
And we haven't got that sort of money, have we? Our prisons are overcrowded and some are in terrible state as it is.
Yeah. We need to think a lot of people who are in prison committing crimes, you know, based on their economic backgrounds, push them towards certain crimes like drug crimes and the like. And you think, you know, if these people are properly supported through a decent education system for a start, then we might see less people.
But the system's broken.
It is.
on so many levels.
You know, we need to...
It does need a wider perspective on all of this, and that's very hard to take, especially if you're the victim of crime.
I'm surprised it's Gen Z that's having these kind of thoughts, though, because people like to say Gen Z have gone woke and stuff, but clearly we're...
Coming through the other side.
Yeah.
Right, we've got to leave it there, you two. Jack, Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you.
And right now it's time for the weather with Catherine Chalk.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England, into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastwards. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. Thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up to a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Is the Prime Minister seeking even closer ties with the EU?
Sir Keir Starmer set to meet European leaders in Brussels tomorrow.
Well, the move is the first time a British Prime Minister will attend such a gathering since we left the EU 5 years ago.
Has the PM forgotten his previous promises?
There will be no return to freedom of movement,
no return to the customs union, no return to the single market.
The government eases checks on illegal migrants. Labour repealing rules introduced by the Tories, blocking citizenship for those who arrive here illegally.
A chess piece for China. The Duke of York was apparently seen as a valuable communications channel.
Trade wars underway. Leaders of Canada and Mexico hit back against the States. Retaliation tariffs on Donald Trump's levies.
I think Canadians are a little perplexed as to why our closest friends and neighbours are choosing to target us.
And the Princess of Wales's plea to parents. There's new research by the Royal Foundation Centre, which is calling for adults to look at their children and not their phones.
The UK is to become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own AI tools which can generate child abuse images.
As a cash-strapped council sends letters to its well-off residents asking them if they would voluntarily pay more council tax, we're asking if higher earners should pay more to their local community.
It was a gallant defeat, but a defeat nonetheless for England, who suffered a loss against Ireland in Dublin in their Six Nations opener. In the Premier League, Nottingham Forest hit 7 against Brighton, and Marcus Rashford is on the verge of a loan move to Aston Villa.
Good morning. Well, there's plenty of sunshine in the forecast for the southeast of England today. Cloudier in the west. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
Just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
We've been talking about those old-fashioned skills, which the King wants us to regain, wants more of us to get involved in all the old-fashioned stuff.
Like hedge laying, thatching, I mean, a lot of them countryside skills, but also model making, flower arranging, I mean, anything like that. Woodwork, yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, there's a lot to be said for those people. I know that I've been bleats on about going to university, and it can be great for a lot of people. I mean, I loved going to university and was useful for my career, but what about those people who want to get a trade? I mean, a lot of my cousins have got trades, and I mean, one is a carpenter. And what an incredible skill.
And it stays with you for life.
You've got
and it'll always be useful.
And we just seem to disregard things like a trade these days, which is absolutely crackers.
But the reason they're so expensive now, of course, is because there aren't as many of them around.
Many of them.
Yeah.
No. I was what it costs to get a plumber.
I was talking about that hedge twining.
Hedge laying.
Hedge laying, it's called. Well, apparently Tim, thank you very much, Tim, says in Nottinghamshire the hedge laying is called plashing. And Victoria agrees. She said, my father called it plashing. This is an old word, more used in the Midlands. It's Anglo-Norman English. And then Anne says all thatchers have their own trademark. In Hampshire, for instance, you could always tell when passing a thatched cottage with a straw reed pheasant on the roof who had done the thatch. That was the way they left their mark.
Yeah, a little model. Well, here you go. Amanda's been in touch on that and says, here's my new thatch with the animals on top as well.
Oh, it's lovely.
What is that? A couple of ducks and a fox?
Yeah.
Nice.
She says, we live on a little road and the cars slow down as they go by. I'll bet they do.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see, actually, because that's a proper skill as well.
Oh, look at their house. What a lovely house.
Very nice.
Very nice. But
a very traditional sort of thatched house, if you can.
But the animals on top absolutely make it, don't they?
Do you reckon it keeps the rain out there?
Yeah, keeps the rain out,
yes. It does. Of course it does.
What would be the point of it if it didn't? I'd have to say there's something really lovely about a thatched house, a thatched roof. Yes. But I mean, I don't know, it just costs you a lot to get it redone, however long it lasts.
Yeah.
10, 15 years.
But it is a bit of local history, isn't it, when you see a thatched roof like that?
It is. It's very, very nice to see.
Smashing.
If you've got any pictures of that, let us know. Now, Friday, if you're watching us on Friday, you will know it marked 5 years since Brexit. But by this time tomorrow, could Britain be sliding back to Brussels as a rule taker?
Well, it's sort of come as a warning from the former Brexit minister, David Jones. And that's ahead of Sir Keir Starmer jetting off tomorrow as part of his big relations reset.
Well, this is what he said back in November when he was asked about the possibility of a new deal on Brexit.
Been very clear that I don't think the deal that we've got with the EU is good enough, and that's why we are resetting that and looking for a better deal, whether that's on security and defence, hugely important, but also on trade.
Well, political commentator Duncan Bartz is still with us here in the studio. It is about time that things were talked through again anyway. That was always on the cards.
Indeed. So this is not a massive surprise, but there is some cynicism knocking around this morning from various politicians, including the Conservative Party and also Reform, saying, hang on a second, can we trust Sir Keir Starmer when he goes to Brussels in the next 24 hours and has a nice dinner with the leaders of the 27 member states? Can we trust him not to kind of cosy up too much? And that is the concern, and I think you can make the argument that he's done some things since being in government that no one knew he was going to do. So there is a question about trust over this.
Interesting. I mean, he has made it very clear and repeatedly that we are not going back in. We're not going to go back into the single market. We're not going to have free movement. Now, of course, if the general population don't believe him... That's a very bad sign of where we are in terms of politics in this country at the moment.
Absolutely that. And you've got some newspapers this morning, you've got The Telegraph, you've got The Express and a few others who are raising the question, which is, can we believe what he says? And if you look at his poll ratings at the moment, his personal poll ratings, they're pretty low, you know. And I think there is a question about trust here. And I've mentioned this before, but we've seen in the last few months, we've seen things like the inheritance tax on family farms, wasn't in a manifesto. We've seen the winter fuel payment changes, the means testing effectively, wasn't in the manifesto. So it's perfectly understandable if people go, hang on a second, can we trust him when he's in Brussels?
Yeah, but they give off the impression that they just don't care what we think at the moment. And I suppose with a degree of arrogance maybe, or just the confidence they've got, knowing they've got such an enormous majority.
Well, I think that's it. You know, when you have a majority of Labour's size, I think you can get away with pretty much anything you want. There is this narrative that's been developing, which is, you know, in the first year of government, let's get the stuff we want done. And then as we head towards a general election, people might forget in 2 or 3 years' time. I think the other ramification of this is where it leaves us with Donald Trump's United States of America, because Trump is not a big EU fan. One of the benefits of Brexit should be that we can trade with who we want, because we're no longer part of the EU. So if we want a decent trade deal with the USA, we should be able to do that. I'm from the school of thought, which is, you know, what's the point in having cake if you can't eat it? On the basis of that phrase, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it. Well, why buy it in the first place?
I've always wondered that.
So we should be able to trade with the EU because we're close to them, but also we should be able to trade with America because they are a massive trading global partner. My concern here would be is that Trump might just go, hang on a second, you're getting a little bit too close here to the European Union. What about me? And we know that he doesn't react too well to such situations.
What about the other issue with the Labour Party seems to be doing things which don't seem to make any sense at the moment. I mean, look, the farmers' inheritance tax is one of those issues. But now we know immigration is a huge concern to a majority of voters of all political persuasions in this country. And now the Labour Party seems to be putting through on this new immigration bill actually something reversing what's already in place, which would seem to be a deterrent. They seem to be reversing a deterrent.
It is bizarre. I mean, to be fair, Labour is saying this morning that they will continue to use age assessment and won't hesitate to go further in legislation if needed. So the Conservatives, back in 2023, introduced a bit of legislation called the Illegal Migration Act that allowed a couple of things. One, you could scientifically test people coming to this country illegally, predominantly across the Channel, on dinghies to find out their actual age. I think most people watching GB News this morning would go, well, that's probably about right. And also, if you came to this country illegally, you wouldn't get UK citizenship.
It would never be available.
Never be available unless in really exceptional circumstances. What we're reading this morning is this new bit of legislation, so this is a Labour bit of legislation, in the small print, is that if you come to this country, it'll be easier for you to get UK citizenship, but also there's this whole area about testing people for their age. age. And to put it into context, in other countries like France and Germany, they use medical tests to help determine the ages of younger asylum seekers. And what we've seen over the years, and it's well documented, we've had people who rock up on these shores illegally, and they claim to be something like 15 or 16. Turns out they're in their early 20s. So this bit of legislation, they get put in the school, or in other places that might put children at risk. So what we're seeing here with this new bit of legislation is it lessens the necessity to medically test them to define their age.
And it, as Stephen was saying, it doesn't seem very Labour, some of these things. That, yes, they're welcoming refugees and migrants and, in some cases, illegal immigrants. But one always trusted that the Labour Party would put its own citizens first, and particularly the poor, the old, the vulnerable.
Yep.
And yet there have been decisions made that seem to be knocking the poor, the old, the vulnerable.
Completely, and I think most people in this country, Britain has a reputation for being a fair and tolerant nation. We're quite fair. And yet, if people turn up in this country, come to this country illegally, and now I keep using that word because it's not through legal systems, it's illegally, you don't mind supporting them if they're in genuine need. But if they turn around and say, well, I'm 15, and it turns out they're 22, most people will go, hang on a second, that's just not right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be allowing people into this country who behave like that.
Yeah. Things just seem to be going very wrong. Duncan, appreciate your time this morning.
Before we say goodbye to you,
yes,
we were talking about your sausages.
Yeah, my sausages.
Because you are a sausage maker.
Yes.
And you've even found a photograph to prove it.
Well, I was asked.
They're your sausages.
You were asked.
All right,
I was asked.
Yeah.
So I made those over yesterday. So that's the spice mix.
Yes.
You can see on the screen. That is watercress, sage and white pepper. And those are the sausages that I stuffed
very
yesterday.
professional looking, I must say.
I like
How
them
many years
big.
have you been doing this?
About 5 years.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, you go home now and enjoy them.
Enjoy them, yeah.
The thing is aesthetically pleasing. The bigger you make them, people go, oh, they look fantastic. It's all about the look.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
You don't want a small sausage.
Yeah. No, I used to like in the days when I ate sausages, if they were interesting curly-whirly ones or something like that.
Like a Cumberland.
That's exactly Cumberland, yeah.
Cumberland ring.
My boys still like a Cumberland ring with mashed potato and gravy.
Perfect. Onion gravy.
Yeah. OK, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
allowed to go now. Thank you.
Just too much.
It
You're
is.
never coming back, Duncan.
Really?
You know that. That is it now.
My copybook.
You are.
What if I bring sausages?
We don't believe in cancel culture on this station, but I might make an exception for you.
Fair enough.
Right, let's have a look at some of the other stories this morning. And Barclays customers facing a third day of disrupted services following an IT problem. Online, mobile banking hit by the issue. It started on Friday. So your balance could be outdated if you look online. Payments made or received not showing.
The Princess of Wales has launched a new initiative aimed at developing the nation's social and emotional skills. The scheme looks to alleviate the human cost from a world sometimes filled with mistrust and misunderstanding. Catherine has said that the state of modern life is leaving many people feeling isolated and vulnerable.
The actress Lily Collins, that's Phil Collins' daughter, by the way, in case you didn't know, and her husband have had a bit of a backlash after they've announced their first child has arrived, but via a surrogate. She's had lots and lots of congratulations, of course, but also some criticism for joining the ranks of stars having a baby via surrogacy. Rich people renting out women's bodies is how some critics have put it. Which I think is a bit harsh.
Don't criticise others until you know what maybe has motivated them.
Yeah.
And anyway,
it's a new life in the world. Well, it's a new life in the world. Let's celebrate that, rather than being critical. I mean, I have my own questions about surrogacy and IVF and all the rest of it. That some of it doesn't make me very comfortable, but nevertheless, it's not my place to judge, is it?
Not to judge, no.
No.
OK, I think it's weather time. We can judge that one. Here's Catherine.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England, into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastwards. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. Thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I was just looking at Lily Collins, Emily in Paris or something, because her dad is Phil Collins.
Yeah.
But she's technically American, even though Phil is English. Because her mom is American actress Jill Tavelman. Now, I'm not familiar with her.
No, I'm not.
But anyway, they divorced a long time ago. But anyway, her husband, Charlie McDowell...
Whose husband?
Lily Collins.
Lily Collins' husband, yeah.
His mom is Mary Steenburgen.
Wow.
Who's an Oscar-winning actress.
Yeah. Big
His
deal.
dad is Malcolm McDowell.
Of Chocolate Orange.
Of Chocolate Orange. They divorced years and years ago. And his stepdad is Ted Danson.
That's right, because Steenburgen took up with Ted Danson. Yeah. That's Hollywood for you, isn't it?
Honestly, so talk about this child having very famous grandparents all round. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's what I said, that's Hollywood. And that's what annoyed me the other night.
Oh, yeah, go on.
All of the big Hollywood stars put on that fundraising concert.
Oh, yes.
Didn't they just each give $1 million?
Yeah, to raise more money.
Yeah. Why? It was like, what do you call it?
A telethon.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was, I'll think of the word in a minute. Virtue signalling.
Oh, virtue signalling.
Yeah, so we'll get together and we'll do a concert. I'm sorry, actually, it would have been much quicker and easier if they'd just each given $1 million, like a few other of the acting fraternity did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not the right response.
But this way, they're seen to be doing a good thing rather than actually getting on with it. Anyway.
The Great British Giveaway is officially 1 year old, and we have a birthday treat for you. We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, the Princess of Wales is launching a new initiative. We'll tell you more about it in a moment.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out... First of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went and he turned around and he was like, "We're going to need another sling." So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm excited now at 8:22.
Are you?
Exactly at 8:22. Yes, because Anne Diamond just said to me in the break, I'm feeling... Look at her face.
What?
She said, I'm feeling flippant.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good. Let's be flippant.
I've got that mood.
No, it's
I don't know
good.
why.
I'm
good,
a bit like that today.
Yes, yeah. Well, I know why you are, because you've got several days off coming, haven't you? You're going to go away for a bit or something.
I'm going to go away for a bit.
Yeah, lovely.
Back in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And
that's why I'm a bit excited too. No, it isn't.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. But I want to talk about the Princess of Wales now, because she's in the news for a number of reasons, actually. The one she wants us to know about is that she's launching a new initiative aimed at developing the nation's social and emotional skills.
Yeah, it looks to alleviate what she's calling the human cost from a world sometimes filled with mistrust and misunderstanding.
She said, quite rightly, I think, that the state of modern life is leaving many people feeling isolated and vulnerable, resulting in pretty poor mental health, addiction and abuse. The thing she doesn't really want us to talk about as much is what she's wearing. We'll talk about that. Oh, sorry, yes, but we will talk about that in a minute. Right now, let's talk to the editor of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward. Very good morning, Ingrid.
Very nice to see you, Anne.
Lovely to see you, and Stephen as well.
Yes.
And I mean, she's right in what she's saying, and she's launching this initiative. It's just such a huge job. How does she think she's going to affect the mental health of the country in this way?
Well, I think what she's trying to do is she's written a foreword to the report to her Royal Foundation. And I think she has already brought to the attention, I mean, I know that you know and I know, Anne, but that how important the first 5 years of a child's life are. But what she's saying in layman terms, it's all in very rather verbose language, this report. But what it says in layman's terms is that you have to do very simple things like have eye contact with your child. Well, to you and I, that would be perfectly normal. But for very modern mums, they're so often scrolling on their phones or talking to friends when they're pushing baby in the stroller or whatever, and not concentrating on actually engaging with the child. What she's saying is how important it is to engage with very young children, because the way you, I suppose, embrace them emotionally has a huge impact on their later lives. And these first 5 years are very important. So basically, that's what it is in layman's terms.
The big question to all of that, Ingrid, is going to be, is anyone who is feckless enough not to interact with their child going to take any notice of the Princess of Wales?
Well, hopefully they might. I mean, I see, and I'm sure you see people, in the streets everywhere on their telephones. And a lot of them are not mums, actually, but probably very expensive nannies. So I think that the ordinary man will probably listen to this. I think they will, because it's her. And I think that's what she's hoping for. It certainly brings, they may not do anything, but it brings it to mind. I think it puts it to the forefront of your mind.
Exactly. I think it's the fact that she's saying it will also infuse and encourage the people who are working with the parents who need the help. I mean, because there are organisations that are always interacting, trying to get parents much more involved in their children's lives. And they're the ones who need support and encouragement by everything she says. But you can't help just looking at the pictures that we've just seen and the pictures of her the other day when she was at the Children's Hospice. And you notice her because she is the Princess of Wales and she's important, but also because she looks fabulous and we're interested and we engage with that. Do you not feel that? And what do you think about the fact that she is not now going to tell the press what she's wearing, because she literally wants us all to concentrate on what she's saying and doing rather than what she's wearing?
Well, you remember, Anne, as well as I do, that Diana said almost exactly the same thing, because it was all about what she was wearing and her hairdo and her earrings and her handbag, so nothing has changed. But it is very flattering that people want to know exactly, what you're wearing and how you're dressed. And of course, it helps the fashion industry hugely, because these outfits sell out when they're, and the princess is very canny about mixing clothes like Alexander McQueen with Zara, and so she mixes high street with high-end fashion. But the fact that Buckingham Palace put out who the designers are, well, maybe that is a good idea if that stopped. I'm sure so many people will have probably a lot more fun trying to find out than being told. And when you read it in the newspapers or online, there seems to be an awful lot devoted to where her earrings come from, where her shoes come from, how much they cost, and what the coat costs. And I do understand her wanting to move away from that a bit.
Yeah, I guess she just sort of is saying, please take me more seriously than just a clothes horse. But, you were saying about Diana, but Diana said she hated it, but she loved it too, didn't she? I know that. You probably know that too, firsthand.
She did. She loved the attention, but I think when she was trying to get a message across, and she wasn't probably, as erudite as Kate is, so she did it in her lovely way with a giggle and a smile and simple language. But when she was getting a message across, people were always looking at what she was wearing. And I think you're right. I think she did I think she enjoyed it because maybe no one else was looking at what she was wearing. But Kate doesn't need that kind of support because she's in a happy marriage. So I think that it's slightly different.
Yeah, it is very different. Great to talk to you.
Thank you. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. And it's funny because...
All the way through that, I had our director say, you may as well just go at the toilet.
Well, why didn't you take the moment?
Ingrid didn't want to talk to me,
No, I
did she?
don't know what you do.
I don't know what she is. No, she's clearly not a fan. Well, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes to have a debate about council tax. I'm just going to cancel my subscription to Majesty magazine and then we'll be straight back.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, it's 8:32 and GB News can exclusively reveal that Waverley Borough Council, now that's in Surrey, has issued a letter to residents asking for their thoughts on a proposal to introduce a voluntary additional tax scheme.
Yes, the letters seem to have gone out to people in the higher tax band or council tax band, which, in other words, they're going out to the better off residents. In the letter, the council leader, Paul Follows, writes that the new proposal is aimed at supporting causes and improving life in the borough.
Yeah, but it's been dubbed by some people a guilt tax, others calling it a divisive class war.
So this morning we're asking, should the wealthy step up, or is this an unfair way to plug financial gaps?
Let's talk to former Labour advisor Mike Buckley and communications manager at the Institute for Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. Good to see you both this morning. Mike, why should people who happen to have a bigger house be expected to shell out more money when they're not using the services they're paying for any more than anybody else?
Well, I think on this particular issue, they've been invited to pay more. They're not being forced to. And I think it's great that this council has looked at the gap in its budget and thought this is one way where we can ask people to pay more. And there are wealthy people in this country who do want to pay more. There's a very well-known group of millionaires and greater than millionaires, for example, in this country who are constantly saying to the government, please tax us more. We've got money to spend. We want to improve public services. We want to improve people's lives. You need to put taxes up on the wealthy. So this is one small way where a council is looking at its budget and thinking, you know what, people who've got some money in the bank, we can ask them to do a bit more. But there's no coercion here, so I think this is a great thing. But council tax more broadly needs to be reformed. We haven't reformed it in England.
No, but Reem, I don't know what you think of this, because there is, if you read further into the letter, the suggestion that the people who do volunteer to pay more would sit on some sort of committee and decide how that money is spent. Isn't that then putting, council power in simply the hands of the rich guys?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I think that I have no particular issue with people voluntarily deciding to give more money to the council. That's not an issue. If you want to voluntarily do whatever you want with your money, that's absolutely your responsibility. You can do what you want with it. However, the council effectively saying that they need to raise more money by taxing wealthier people even more, I think is fundamentally the heart of the problem here. Councils already waste millions of our taxpayer money. They spend it on various different communications outputs. They spend huge amounts of money on remuneration. My friends over at the Taxpayers Alliance, a think tank in Westminster, they did a couple of research papers very recently, and they do something called the Town Hall Rich List. So in Guildford Council, there was one of the highest paid council bosses, got £600,000 in a single year in remuneration. So there is already definitely some space for there to be some cuts. I think there's also the fundamental point here. Councils aren't the best place to improve things in the community. I think a lot of these private charities are actually doing a fantastic job. So if you're a wealthy person and you want to give more money back to the community, I'd probably say your money is better spent at a local charity than it is at your council.
I mean, that's a fair point, Mike, isn't it, in all of this? I mean, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of fat that can be cut out.
Only the state can reach the whole of society. Charities do a wonderful job. I used to work in the charity sector. But however big a charity is and however wide its reach, it cannot reach everybody in that community. It doesn't have access to everybody's home, doesn't have access to the data. Councils in this country, they don't waste lots of money at all. Their budgets have been cut, hugely. Last 14 years under the Conservative government. The new government has begun to redress that, but only slightly because of the limits on funding. One of the ways that could be changed and restore public services, our parks, our GP services, our hospitals, education in local areas, all of this has been devalued. We've all seen it happen over the last 15 years. It's
not as a result of underfunding.
Making people angry in this country. To redress that, councils do need more funding. What we need in terms of council tax is the proper revalue of council tax plans, which hasn't been done since 1991. What that means is poorer households pay a lot more proportionally of their income than wealthier households. So all people like me who want reform are asking for is for the for people to pay a similar proportion of their wealth, of their income, on council tax. That would mean wealthier households paying more in terms of cash, but it wouldn't in terms of proportion. But it would mean poorer households, and most of us in this case, actually paying a lot less on our council tax. That would improve local services, but it would also mean there's more money in the pockets of people who need it.
This is fundamentally a misunderstanding with the idea that actually more money in councils means that public services improve. I mean, take the National Health Service, for example. We already spend just below £200 billion a year on it, and has it improved over the last 5-6 years? I don't think so.
Well, no, it hasn't, because they haven't had enough
more money in hold on, let me finish. More money in public services doesn't mean that they're automatically going to improve. Councils already waste huge amounts of our taxpayer money. That money is better spent elsewhere.
OK, we've got to leave it there, you two. Mike Buckley, Reem Ibrahim, good to see you both. Thank you very much indeed. We approach Waverley Council for comment.
So far, nothing.
Not yet.
But they may well in the future.
Yes. Right, quick look at the sport with Aidan. Good morning.
Nice to see you. We'll start with England.
Yes, let's.
And the Six Nations. Look, it was a reasonably decent performance over there. A good first half. They lost 27-22 in the end to Ireland, but Steve Borthwick took the gamble of naming his side early. I think that gives the initiative and the impetus to the opponents, especially when you are up against an elite team like Ireland. But for 40 minutes, they were doing a good job. And one of the debutantes, Caden Murley, he scored a try early on. and England looked good, but they just ran into this same old problem, Stephen, of just not being able to keep the job going for the full 80 minutes. Last year at the Autumn Internationals, consecutive defeats against New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, same problem. Performed well, didn't lose by much, but couldn't see the job through. And that has to be a problem with either, or even all of the above, psychology, conditioning and the level of competition in the domestic competition, whether it translates to international rugby now, whether there's too much of a separation. I'll touch on, just the stats, by the way, 6 defeats in 7 matches and an OK start for the new captain, Mauro Itoje, I would suggest. As for Scotland, 31-19 against Italy. Italy been much better in the last couple of years, so a decent result for Scotland. Hat-trick by Hugh Jones, who I think sounds a lot more Welsh than he does Scottish. And a big game for England next week now. They're up against France. They could have another gallant defeat and open up with two defeats. But never write them off, I suppose.
What's on today that we should watch out for?
In football-wise, we've got Man United against Crystal Palace. They'll be without Marcus Rashford, who's on the verge of joining Aston Villa. He's having a medical down in the West Midlands. And a huge game at 4:30. Not quite as big as we thought it was going to be. We thought it might be a title decider, Arsenal versus Manchester City, but there's been some real needle gathering between those two clubs in the last few years, and I'll be watching that at 4:30, no question.
Righty-ho.
Right, Adrian, we've got to leave it there. Short and sweet.
Good to see you this weekend.
And you.
Still to come, let's have a look at the winter sun. Here's some forecasts for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Well, it's rather unsettled across the central Mediterranean. Heavy showers, rain in parts of Spain as well, but there are some drier spells. So across the Canary Islands, we'll see some showers, but across Gibraltar and the south of Spain, some outbreaks of rain here. An area of low pressure will bring some heavy showers and thunderstorms across central parts of the Mediterranean, but there will be some drier spells in between. And then looking ahead, well, plenty of sunshine on offer, and it should be feeling pleasant in that sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Well, specialist from Woolly and Wallace Auction House, Alexandra Aguilar, joins me now. Alexandra, how lovely to see you. And I wonder whether you were going to bring the jewellery in. You're actually wearing the jewellery. So shall we begin with the bracelet?
Right, so it's a diamond line bracelet, as you can see. It's really a beautiful thing. It's made of 27 diamonds with a yellow tint, and they are mounted on yellow gold, and it's really a beautiful piece. But there's more to it, and as you mentioned, it's the provenance. It comes from the collection of Elizabeth Taylor, really one of the queens of Hollywood, and it was given to her by Michael Jackson.
Have you any idea why Michael Jackson gave her such a magnificent gift?
They were very, very good friends. They were friends for over 20 years, and he knew her love for diamonds, for jewelry, and we know that they exchanged many presents, including this fantastic bracelet.
Would that have been made new at that time?
Yes, I believe so.
We're talking, what, about the 1970s or something like that?
Oh, maybe a little bit later.
Later, 80s?
Yes, that's right. But what's particularly interesting about this one is all the 27 diamonds have the same colour. And it's very difficult to find stones with the same colour, with the same yellow tint. So it makes it particularly beautiful and particularly special.
Why do you think it will go for about £70,000?
It's... well, it is a beautiful piece. It's very wearable, as you can see, and there is the provenance is amazing. Jewelry from the collection of Elizabeth Taylor is very sought after, of course.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's see. Thanks, darling. Let's see what's in the papers with Jack Symes, who's a public philosopher and researcher at Durham University.
I know, we're terribly bowled over by
I
that.
still don't know what that means, but it sounds very good.
It does.
Unfortunately, entertainment reporter Stephanie is just...
I know.
Yeah, well, we know what you're...
Yeah, you know what I'm about.
Well, I don't think we do.
Yes, we do.
Do we really?
To the viewers.
Do we really?
Jack, let's start with the Sunday Telegraph, should we? Because it's focusing on Whitehall watching Washington very closely.
It's the big story at the moment, isn't it? We're talking Trump trade wars, tariffs against Canada, Mexico, China. The EU looks like it's going to be next, and Keir Starmer and us in the UK were worried that we'll be on the hit list for them.
What do we actually sell them that could be hit, though? Because we're a services nation, aren't we?
We're very
Scotch whisky.
And vaccines.
It's not going to hit us as hard as Canada or Mexico. One of the earlier commentators you had on the show was talking about how Canada are going to get hit hard by it and the US are going to win that trade war. But when we're thinking of a collective, if the US are doing this to every country, which they want to pick a fight with everyone, it's not going to end well for them. So I think, although we can be highly critical of the EU for a number of reasons, and future doesn't look like it's going to be with the EU in the short or medium term, you know, in the short term, like making sure we've got trade allies, I think it's a smart move from Keir Starmer.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, if you...
Well, no, we like variety of opinion.
We can't rely on the US for, like, all of these things, right? Since the Second World War, they've had a monopoly on aid, on like military, on the economy. Think of everything we use, like Google and Facebook and Meta and X, like all the information we use, all of the media we're consuming, it's so based in the US.
It certainly is.
And we haven't seen a US leader do something like this, like in history, who's going to embed themselves into every aspect of our economy and culture and then pull the rug from underneath us. But you can only do it once. Like
it's a tactic, isn't it? And it's a negotiation. I mean, particularly with Mexico and Canada, it's a negotiating tool.
Yeah.
So why not?
Well, again, though, like this is radical. Like I know we can laugh at Trump, we can think it's funny, but you know he's demanding Greenland, right? He wants Gulf of Mexico. He wants Canada to join the US. He wants Mexico to join the US. These aren't like. He's being serious about this stuff.
It just feels like a low blow. I'm like, do what you want to do in Trump land. But, you know, the whole world right now, everyone's tightening their purse strings. And I just think, you know, make it less about you trying to get your own back and actually realising that we're all going through tough times.
But it's America first, isn't it? That's the argument. You know, let's start making everything here. Let's make American goods cheaper for Americans to buy, or comparatively cheaper, by upping the price of everything else.
But one day he's going to need all these countries and allies. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I just think it's
but at the end of the day, we'll still need them, won't we?
This is what I don't
America
like.
is so big and powerful.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if we shouldn't just respond by like a Buy British campaign like we had in I think it was the 60s. So, you know, where we too are strong. I mean, it's the sort of thing that Nigel Farage is talking about.
That's it.
We must be strong on our own.
Well, that's why we need a leader who can do that, and not a leader who's going to back down.
But we're not. We can't be self-sustainable. Just the UK on its own, right?
Yeah.
We do need You know, it's a global market. We need the European Union. We need America at the moment. We need to rely on all of these. Just look at what's happening with Russian power and energy. We want to cut them off, but Europe hasn't been able to.
So would we? But in that sense, wouldn't we be better off tying our hanging on to Trump's apron strings rather than Angela von der Leyen's?
Well, it looks like the US. Well, let's say unpredictable at the moment, and that unpredictability is not good for
but the EU is predictable. They don't like us, especially now we've left.
But the thing is, whatever happens in the EU still has an influence on us, whether we like it or not, whether we're in a part of the club or not. We're still going to be affected. Whatever Trump does to the EU is going to affect us indirectly.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to buy French wine or French cheese. We can buy a British. I don't know. I know I'm being Little Britain now, but it just feels as though we're sitting here quaking at what all the other countries are going to do. Why don't we stand up for ourselves?
But how did we get to this point as a country? When did we have this kind of small island mentality again? And it is sad.
I think it's been a slow decline, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's a real shift in the US, though, as we can all see. It is America first. We saw J.D. Vance rewriting theology earlier this week when he told us that Christianity has a message of family first, community second, the world next. Like that couldn't be further from the truth. Like it's not just their actions. Their deep philosophy in the US is steering strongly towards American first from their ethics to their politics.
They're going back to America of the 50s and the 60s, and maybe that's the majority of what Americans want. They want to... They're not... I think the true hardcore traditional American person is not in line with all this woke ideology, and I think that's why Trump and Vance got it right, because that's what they want to go back to.
If you were offered a job in America, would you go?
Oh, gosh, Anne, I think about it all the time, because I think I'll do pretty well with a British accent in New York, but I just don't like the culture of America. I think I love being in the UK. I think we're a well-balanced society where we can speak free, be free. I think, obviously, as a black person as well, I do think the racism in America is shocking. And, I believe in democracy. I think if they voted for Trump, well done. I can see why he's won and why he appeals. But I think it's going to be very divisive there over the next few years.
What about you? If you were offered a job in America, would you go?
As a philosopher, you sort of take work where you can find it, to be honest.
That's an easy cop-out answer.
Philosophise anywhere.
Would you go and live there and enjoy living there?
No, I'd prefer to live in the UK by far to the US. But I don't think it's not the political scene, right? I think there's no point getting off the train if you don't like the direction that it's going in. Like, you can debate, discuss, move it in the direction that you want it to. I'm not going to go there. I'm in a very privileged position, though, right? As a white man going to America, let's say. But the levels of Islamophobia and racism, and the president of the United States blaming people with disabilities for a plane crash.
Well, that was a rather odd statement, it has to be said.
But he makes odd statements every day.
Yeah, but that's his style.
That is Trump. Like, I do find him a fascinating character. I don't hate Trump. I just think... Is he actually leader material? It's almost like he's a bit like a caricature sometimes.
We need to take him seriously, right? It's really dangerous.
He's the most powerful man on earth right now.
Oh, he is.
Yes, he is.
I wouldn't go to the States. I don't like. No, I don't like the culture. I like to visit.
Yeah.
But I couldn't live there.
Would you go, Anne?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, would you live? You live over there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not keen on the culture of it all.
Yeah.
No, but I'm a different
British.
age. I think when you were to do sort of retirement, it would be somewhere I might think of being Golden Girl.
Oh, yeah.
But I think us Brits are more realer. I like British people because I think we're more realer.
Yeah, but you've got to, or in that case, maybe you've got to go into politics or something and try and affect. No, but you have try and affect what the country is becoming.
Sorry, it's just Golden Girl. I was just trying to work out if you were going to be sort of more Dorothy or more Blanche.
Oh, thanks. You know the names too well.
I do. I'm that era. Steph, MPs are saying, or at least one, saying in the Sunday Express, time to protect the gingers.
The gingers. Well, of all the issues in the country, a Labour MP called Chris Evans, who is not the radio presenter.
Or the Hollywood star.
Yeah, no. He's the Labour MP for Caerphilly. I hope I said that right.
Did. Yeah.
He's saying that the equalities legislation should cover hair colour as well. Because he's had a constituent who's basically said he's suffered horrendous bullying in school because he has ginger hair, and he thinks that discrimination should also include the colour of your hair. I find people with ginger hair quite striking, but a lot of people
they do suffer.
They do get...
A lot of people who do have ginger hair have spoken about being bullied.
But you can't have everything under discrimination laws. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, putting it into law is one thing, but it is worth understanding that apparently people who have ginger hair and the whole ginger appearance do have a rough time of it.
They do.
People are nasty to them for
and
some
maybe
reason.
if it was made a bit law, then people would be more aware of it. I'm not saying it should, but I'm saying I can understand why this is now a topic.
As you said, though, of all the issues, right, the Sunday Express talking about discrimination against ginger people when we're going through, like, a heightened period of Islamophobia in the country.
Yeah.
Like, is the irony lost on them that this is the story that they're running? Obviously, bullying and discrimination against someone on that, like...
We need to stamp
especially.
out. Yeah. Bullying should be do everything you can to stop bullying in schools. Of course, you should. However, part of it is part of life, and also you've got to focus on what's going on. I mean, heck, are we going to?
Can't be heck.
You can't address everything.
Ear size, nose size, chin size.
Well, if it's nose size, I've had it. I've had it with this Nelson nose. Like, it's a right hooter. But what can I do? What can I do? No, you're just gorged everywhere.
Stop it, Stephen.
You know I love you.
Love you too.
Right, you two. Well, that was quite a philosophical little discussion.
Yeah,
there.
once
Very
you brought the
nice.
philosophy to the newspapers.
No, don't. It's very nice. It's calming.
Very
reflective.
Sunday zen.
Now get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's
The weather now.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastward. We'll hold on to clear skies for a time, especially across western Scotland to start the night. And similar picture across Northern Ireland as well, with clear skies here to start. But we hold on to a lot of cloud again across northern England, into Wales, into southwest England. Thick enough still for some patchy rain and drizzle at times. Clearer skies across the far southeast of England, where temperatures will quickly fall away and we'll see a touch of frost developing. Elsewhere, holding on to a lot of cloud as we go into Monday morning, but we'll start to see outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland come the early hours. So for most places underneath the cloud, temperatures generally holding up, so frost-free, but across the far southeast of England and into East Anglia, we could wake up to a touch of frost on Monday morning. But for most of England and Wales, it's going to be a largely dry Monday. Hazy spells of sunshine for some and perhaps the odd shower across the far south. But across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland in particular, turning increasingly wet and windy with heavy spells of rain to come, but mild here with temperatures up to 10 or 11 degrees. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British Giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Is the Prime Minister looking for even closer ties with the EU?
Sir Keir Starmer is set to meet European leaders in Brussels tomorrow.
Well, the move is the first time a British PM will attend such a gathering since we left the EU just over 5 years ago.
So has the Prime Minister forgotten his previous promises?
There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market.
The government eases checks on illegal migrants. Labour repeals rules introduced by the Tories, blocking citizenship for those who arrive illegally.
A chess piece for China. The Duke of York was apparently seen as a valuable communications channel. That's according to court papers released today.
Trade wars. Leaders of Canada and Mexico hit back against the US with retaliation tariffs against Donald Trump.
I think Canadians are a little perplexed as to why our closest friends and neighbours are choosing to target us.
The Princess of Wales's plea to parents. New research by the Royal Foundation Centre calls for adults to look at children and not their phones.
And the UK is to become the first country in the world to make it illegal to own tools, AI tools, that can generate child abuse images.
Good morning. Well, there's plenty of sunshine in the forecast for the southeast of England today. Cloudier in the west. I'll have all of the details coming up shortly.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. I was talking a few minutes ago about why we don't have a Buy British campaign.
Yes.
And so many people, good morning, have been in touch saying, oh, that would be a great idea, except that we don't make anything anymore.
Yeah, we do.
We do cheddar cheese.
Lots of cheese. Red Leicester.
Melton Mowbray pork pies.
Yeah.
Scotch
and whiskey.
we do some brilliant Scotch whiskey, very much. We do fantastic sparkling wine now, which is absolute champagne standard, except that we can't
call it
champagne. But most people agree that it really is top-notch nowadays. We make a lot, though, still, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're not the manufacturing country that we were
We make a lot
30,
of ships.
40 years ago.
And a lot of subs.
But we could, yeah, and we could make more.
And we could make more.
But I don't know. I just remember it being when I was a school kid, and I just remember the Buy British campaign. You know, if you bought anything from the greengrocers, it had a little sticker on it saying buy British.
Yeah, and we do. We make, obviously, we do a lot of veg. I mean, the farmers, think of everything farmers produce.
Yeah.
That's all British. Susie Smith says, I'm backing Britain was a great idea back in the day.
Yeah, well, maybe it was called that. Maybe it was called the I'm Backing Britain. But I remember the stickers on produce you got from the greengrocers that had a little sticker on it saying, this is British or something like that.
I mean, I'm not...
It was terrifically exciting.
The nice thing is, if there was a selection of things... I'm not anti-buying stuff from elsewhere, but if you've got a choice of something that you either buy a British one or a not British one, you'd go for the British one.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? It's just...
Unless it was massively more expensive, I suppose. That's the thing. But it worked for a while anyway, I remember.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So there you go.
And it's good that the King, we were talking about this much earlier, the King is starting an initiative about trying to revive, or at least to keep going, some of those wonderful old-fashioned British skills and arts and crafts. And we were talking about thatching. And Amanda sent in this lovely picture of when she got her beautiful-looking cottage newly thatched. And she was making the point that you can ask, but also the thatcher will always leave behind something that shows it's his sort of calling card. It shows it's him. So she sent us a picture, and I don't know if we can see them. She said, we live on a little road, and the cars slowed down as they went by, because there he is at work, making those...
Yeah, it's like
top of the tree, top of the thatch. There must be a name for them, aren't there? But there it is from the road, isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, it's a fox and two hens, but it's the hens chasing the fox.
Oh yes, that's right.
Which is quite nice.
Very clever.
And it's lovely, and isn't that a quintessential sort of British village sort of image?
Yeah, that really is.
Fantastic. Why not?
Is that all your house, or is it a semi? Because if it was a semi, you'd have to sort of discuss with your neighbour that you were going to get it rethatched, wouldn't you? I think that's all your house.
Oh, John Bush has just been in touch.
Oh, yes.
Who said, we overtook France last year and we're the 7th largest manufacturer in the world. I don't know where John gets that from, but I know he's a teacher, a retired teacher, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah, Lorraine says, I agree with you, Anne, about the USA would be a nice place to retire to. I'd love to retire to California, nice weather and beautiful in parts, but I would miss my family too much, and I expect you would too. Yeah, that's always the thing that stops you moving to another country, isn't it, is where you leave your family behind.
And Gary says, Anne, how can we live off the proceeds of sparkling wine? Well, you might not be able to, but you wouldn't care if you drank enough of it. It'd be fine. Now, Friday marked 5 years since Brexit, but by this time tomorrow, could we be sliding back to Brussels as a rule-taking country?
Well, that's the warning from the former Brexit Minister David Jones, ahead of Sir Keir Starmer jetting off tomorrow as part of his big relations reset.
This is what he said in November when asked about the possibility of pursuing a renewed deal on post-Brexit relations.
Been very clear that I don't think the deal that we've got with the EU is good enough, and that's why we are resetting that and looking for a better deal, whether that's on security and defence, important, but also on trade.
Well, this is something that I'm sure Camilla is going to address in her show in about 20 minutes' time. Camilla Tominey, a very good morning to you. Yes, there's a lot to talk about in this issue, isn't there?
There is indeed, and it is going to be quite a Brexity show because we've got some of the key protagonists both on the Remain side and the Brexit side. So I'm going to be speaking to IDS, who actually he's got a story to tell about the Conservatives being offered a free trade deal by Trump when he was over visiting Theresa May at Chequers that time. So I'm going to probe him on that. I'm also going to be speaking to Damien Green, who was Theresa May's deputy when she was doing all of the Chequers dealing, and speaking to Barry Gardiner from Labour, because you'll remember that Barry, a bit like Prime Minister Keir Starmer, was an ardent Remainiac. When you look at the polling on Brexit, I think compared to that 52-48 result, the public are quite upset with the way that Brexit's panned out, disappointed, frustrated, and I don't just mean Leavers, I also mean Remainers. So we'll drill into those figures, but I think the wider point is, even if Keir Starmer does rule out a return to the customs union or any kind of formal relationship with the EU, lots can go on behind the scenes by stealth. We see in the Sunday papers there's even talk of Labour trying to align with the EU's net zero policy, which I personally think will be disastrous. I mean, all of the warning signs about net zero are plain to see. We've got the Norway government collapsing. We've got economic calamity being caused by green levies and this adherence to these arbitrary targets. We've now got among the highest energy costs in the whole of Europe. And I suppose if Europe itself had been more prosperous since we left, things might be a bit different. But you might want to be asking yourself, why is he now going on visits to Brussels? He's got Olaf Scholz coming to Chequers today. That's the third time he's seen the German Chancellor since he became Prime Minister. Wouldn't you rather be aligning yourself with Trump in America, seeing as the American economy is doing much, much, much better than ours and the Eurozone's?
I think so, but it's a tough pill to swallow for the Labour Party, isn't it? As we've seen from Lord Mandelson this week. I mean, he's reversed his position, but it was painful to watch.
Oh, my goodness, isn't it painful to watch them all having to try and erase what they said? I think Mandelson said that Trump was a danger to society. We've got the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, having described him as a neo-Nazi sociopath, I think it was. They're all having to scramble back. But then you have to ask yourself about Starmer's judgment. Was Mandelson a good pick for that role in the first place? The Sunday Times has serialised this book. I know you've discussed it on the paper review this morning about Keir Starmer's sort of rise to political stardom, making the point that he isn't a particularly political animal, which probably sounds a bit oxymoronic when you're talking about a Prime Minister. You know, quite a few people on the inside of Labour sort of likening him to an HR man rather than a real leader. And then again, we've got in the papers more stories about the rise of reform. We've got a piece in the Sunday Mirror saying Kemi Badenoch isn't cutting through, which will obviously be interesting fodder for my Tory guests to discuss. Damien Green, IDS, they've both backed Badenoch very vocally. I'm wondering whether they're having regrets about that. Would Robert Jenrick have been a better leader, perhaps?
Can I just ask you what you make of this, the immigration issue and the new immigration bill in all this? Because it seems extraordinary, and I wonder if I'm getting it wrong. That the government seems to be reversing the idea that if you come to the country illegally, you can never be a UK citizen. Now, if that goes, doesn't that make it more appealing to at least try to come to the UK?
Yeah, no, you're not misinterpreting it at all. I mean, the Labour Party have come in and they've got rid of the deterrent that was the Rwanda plan. Whether people liked it or loathed it is one thing, and how it might actually work in practice another. But the whole point, it was going to be a deterrent like the rules that have been put in place in Australia for many, many years to put people off from arriving by boat and processing them in a third country. When it comes to repealing, that's part of strengthening our legislation. It's not just the fact that people coming here illegally will now, apparently under Labour, have the right to citizenship, Stephen. It's also getting rid of some of that testing that went around. The Tories insisted that people needed to be sort of tested to make sure that they were who they said they were. Do you remember all of those sort of middle-aged bearded men arriving by boat claiming to be 15-year-olds?
That's right. Yeah, it's very. And I also
so they're
want to
getting
know,
rid of that as well.
Yeah, I also want to know about their relationship with China, because they seem to be cozying up to China. And there is even this suggestion now that the planning permission that was sought by China to build a huge new embassy in London is now been seized by Angela Rayner under her special powers, and probably will be given planning permission. And it will be next to Tower Bridge, in an area where previously it's been turned down for planning permission because of lots of different sensitivities.
Well, also, I looked at that story and you look at the scale of this building and you have to ask yourself, why do the Chinese need a building that big in the capital? There's lots of people who look at it. Look at the scale of that. I mean, what on earth? Equally, it's near key infrastructure. There's concerns about sort of underground cabling and whether they can be interfered with. But again, on China, you know, Ian Duncan Smith coming in to discuss the threat to Taiwan. He's just come back from Ukraine. The Mail on Sunday have done a big piece on it because he's written for the newspaper, making the point that in Ukraine, senior people in the military there are saying, look, we've got about 6 months left before we're defeated. And Ian Duncan Smith is going to make the point that if the Western world lets Putin win in Ukraine, then what happens to Taiwan? How does China then capitalise on what Putin will inevitably claim as a victory? So there's quite a lot of foreign affairs to discuss on the show this morning as well, in light of that particular story, Anne.
Well, you talked to Barry Gardner about it, can't you? All right, Camilla, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, could do. Yes, yeah. I'll try.
We'll see you later on.
Yes, actually, in only about under 20 minutes. Now, money, money, money. We're giving you 2 chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway. 2 amazing prize bundles to be won, each bundle containing brand new iPhone, £500 to spend in your favourite store, and 10 grand in tax-free cash. Here's how to take part.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 332. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck to you. Just a quick one. John's been in touch. And I totally get this, John. And I think it's why, certainly like stateside, Trump's appealing so much, because he just says, I'm going to get on and do things. John says, I just don't get why it appears to be so difficult to stop the boats. It's not rocket science. And it will be more complicated than it first seems, but I think there is a frustration there, isn't it? That there's got to be something quite practical that you just can do, and it's not done.
I guess you ask yourself, it's interesting that he added, just do it. And you wonder whether if Trump were in this country, a small island surrounded by water, across which dinghies were coming with illegal migrants, whether Trump would just say, just do it, and what he would do.
But something would get done. Well, I mean, that's the difference. Something would actually happen. Whereas over here,
whether you like it or not, yes, of course.
Doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, just an interesting thought. Still to come, here we go. The Princess of Wales will be telling us what, or won't be telling us. Oh, get this right.
Yeah. She won't be telling us what brand of clothing she's wearing, because she wants us to listen to what she's saying and watch what she's doing, rather than talking about her clothes.
See, I agree with that. I know you're not so keen.
Not so keen.
Anyway, we'll hear more about that next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
People living with obesity are people, and they deserve the right for treatment and care as much as anyone else. What we need to understand is that obesity is a chronic condition, or a disease, as some people call it. It's not a choice. And this is the bit that people really struggle with, is that people think this is a lifestyle choice and people have done this to themselves. What we now know is the science and the evidence shows us that this isn't a choice. People have genetic predispositions for living with obesity. What we need to do is be a bit more compassionate and caring to people that live with obesity and support them to make healthier choices, not actually just discriminate and tell them that they're doing something wrong when, you know, if I had asthma, for instance, you wouldn't be saying the same thing to me there. but then it's exactly the same.
Usually, if you're going for an operation of some form or other, there'll be often there is a criteria. So my mother, she had a knee operation. They wanted to make sure her blood pressure was right and all these things. This is, I mean, to hear somebody say that obesity isn't a choice just because you've got genetic predisposition to it, it's just exactly why people seem to be legitimizing being overweight. Ozempic has proved that people are overweight because they eat too much. Because Ozempic tells you to stop eating, it makes you think that you've eaten and makes you feel full, so you don't eat. You may be predisposed to anything, but you also have a large percentage of responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So absolutely, it is in the patient's best interests, because if you're overweight, it'll take you longer to heal. You're more likely to have complications, the same if you smoke, and also the outcomes are usually better. So for a smoker, if you quit, say 4 weeks before surgery, your 25%, your risk is lower of respiratory complications. So this is literally, of course it's discriminatory, because you have to decide, you have to prioritise the people that are likely to survive the operations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hi again, it's 18 minutes past 9. Now, the Princess of Wales has launched a new initiative aimed at developing the nation's social and emotional skills.
The scheme looks to alleviate the human costs from a world sometimes filled with, as she says, mistrust and misunderstanding.
Yeah, she said that the state of modern life is leaving many people feeling isolated and vulnerable during troubled periods, resulting in poor mental health, addiction and abuse.
Well, earlier we were joined by the editor of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Stewart.
Well, I think what she's trying to do is she's written a foreword to the report to her Royal Foundation. And I think she has already brought to the attention, I mean, I know that you know and I know, Anne, but that how important the first 5 years of a child's life are. But what she's saying in layman terms, it's all in very rather verbose language, this report. But what it says in layman's terms is that you have to do very simple things like have eye contact with your child. Well, to you and I, that would be perfectly normal. But for very modern mums, they're so often scrolling on their phones or talking to friends when they're pushing baby in the stroller or whatever, and not concentrating on actually engaging with the child. What she's saying is how important it is to engage with very young children, because the way you, I suppose, embrace them emotionally has a huge impact on their later lives. And these first 5 years are very important. So basically, that's what it is in layman's terms.
The big question to all of that, Ingrid, is going to be, is anyone who is feckless enough not to interact with their child going to take any notice of the Princess of Wales?
Well, hopefully they might. I mean, I see, and I'm sure you see people, in the streets everywhere on their telephones. And a lot of them are not mums, actually, but probably very expensive nannies. So I think that the ordinary man will probably listen to this. I think they will, because it's her. And I think that's what she's hoping for. It certainly brings, they may not do anything, but it brings it to mind. I think that is, it puts it to the forefront of your mind.
Exactly. I think it's the fact that she's saying it will also infuse and encourage the people who are working with the parents who need the help. I mean, because there are organisations that are always interacting, trying to get parents much more involved in their children's lives, and they're the ones who need support and encouragement by everything she says. But you can't help just looking at the pictures that we've just seen and the pictures of her the other day when she was at the Children's Hospice, and you notice her because she is the Princess of Wales and she's important, but also because she looks fabulous and we're interested and we engage with that. Do you not feel that? And what do you think about the fact that she is not now going to tell the press what she's wearing, because she literally wants us all to concentrate on what she's saying and doing rather than what she's wearing?
Well, you remember, Anne, as well as I do, that Diana said almost exactly the same thing, because it was all about what she was wearing and her hairdo and her earrings and her handbag, you know, so nothing has changed. But it is very flattering that people want to know exactly, you know, what you're wearing and how you're dressed. And of course, it helps the fashion industry hugely, because these outfits sell out when they're, and the princess is very canny about mixing clothes like Alexander McQueen with Zara, and so she mixes high street with high-end fashion. But the fact that Buckingham Palace put out who the designers are, well, maybe that is a good idea if that stopped. I'm sure so many people will have probably a lot more fun trying to find out than being told.
There you are. You see, I think that you can do both. But I do understand her, especially a number of people have pointed out, she's spent the last year coping with cancer. Yeah. And I think maybe that does get you thinking more about being a serious person in her job, rather than just a clothes horse.
I think it's quite a nice way of expressing how, when on most of the papers, most of the days, there is a picture of a royal, an actress, or whoever it is, because of what they look like and what they're wearing, and not because of anything else. And isn't that misogynistic?
Yeah, no, but the key the royals have is that when they go somewhere, they are doing something that's usually worth talking about. And so the opportunity is there for us to talk about what... I mean, for instance, when Catherine was talking to the children in the hospice and everything, and the families there, we ended up talking about what a wonderful job she was doing, not just about what she was wearing, but it was the fact that she was front-page news that made us talk about it. Yeah, that's the royals' job, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I understand it. I just wonder if it's if we need to look at it.
I get where she's coming from, but don't overdo it, Kate, because we love to see what you look like.
Yes. Right, anyway, that is it from us. It's been good to spend the weekend with you, as always. Yeah. Camilla's got all the politics coming up for you in just a moment, of course, and there's a lot to get through today.
So from us, for the moment, goodbye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. So we'll see sunnier spells in the southeast today, cloudier elsewhere with some patchy rain, especially in the west. So through this morning it's been a cold but bright start across the southeastern parts of England, and we'll hold on to the sunshine as we go through this morning and into the afternoon. A lot of cloud though elsewhere, especially across Scotland, running down to northwest England into Wales and the southwest of England. Here we'll see patchy outbreaks of rain at times, but turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland. Temperatures generally around average, highs of 8 to 9 degrees, but feeling pleasant in any sunshine. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain across parts of Scotland will clear its way eastward.